Mm, mm, mm. Oh, yeah. I'm with this, I'm just gonna lay back and I'ma drop some smooth lyrics. So tune in 7 to 9:30 and don't be late. We about to set it straight. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Word. I'm ready. Let's go. Ain't no half stepping, that's the name of the show. Yeah. Marcus J hosting and we ready to go. Yeah. Hunters talk sprinkle with a dash of humor to the legacy listeners and the online viewers. What you wanna talk about, call it, we're hearing you. Cover all topics, touch on the main issues. With the flow in this show, bring the heat. The word on the street, Wizard Earl on the beat. We superb in the B, legacy online. 7 to 9:30, please be on time. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J, my brother. If they can't hang, word to their mother. And he been on this grind for a while. The brother so smart, plus brother got style. Up in Richmond, we on the mission, before force. And listen up, this Marcus J start to talk, run it back. And he been on this grind for a while. The brother so smart, plus brother got style. Up in Richmond, we on the mission, before force. And listen up, this Marcus J start to talk. Steppin' is the name of the show. Yeah. Marcus J hosting and we ready to go. Yeah. Hunters talk sprinkle with a dash of humor to the legacy listeners and the online viewers. What you wanna talk about, call it, we're hearing you. Cover all topics, touch on the main issues. With the flow in this show, bring the heat. The word on the street, Wizard Earl on the beat. We superb in the B, legacy online. 7 to 9:30, please be on time. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J, my brother. If they can't hang, word to their mother. And he been on this grind for a while. The brother so smart, plus brother got style. Up in Richmond, we on the mission, before force. And listen up, this Marcus J start to talk.
All right, y'all. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J is live. We are in the building, ready to have another outstanding show. We're excited to bring you the flagship show of Legacy Internet Radio. It is the first Monday in May of 2022. And it's time for the flagship show of Legacy Internet Radio. It's called Ain't No Half-Step Marcus J. It's live right now.
Yeah.
It's about that time. It's about that time to get.
Button your lip, open your ears, strap on your thinking cap. Socially conscious talk that's entertaining with a dash of humor and the top sports stories of the week. It's time for Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J.
Sellers has Jordan. Jordan with 2 seconds to go. Puts it up and scores at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago. Manning lobs it. Burris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. He hits one deep to right center. That ball is out of here. The Yankees win the pennant.
Ain't no hashtag when Marcus J is live. We are in the building. Be down with us tonight at 804-402-2893. Be a part of the flagship show, heard live from New Den of Legacy Internet Radio. Thank you to everybody that's rocking with us tonight. We appreciate those folks that are checking us out on Facebook Live. Thank you to those folks that are checking us out on YouTube Live. Thank you to those folks that are watching us and rocking with us later on in our archives, because you guys every single week continue to rock with us, we will continue to roll with you. Our phone number to be a part of the discussion tonight is 804-402-2893. If you have something to say, you want to be a part of the show in that way, by all means, the phone lines are open. They'll be open. They're open now. And we look forward to building and bonding with you guys. We're getting some love already from our social media family. Let me see, who is this checking in with us? We're getting some early salutations, and if you would bear with me, let me see, who is this saying? Good evening. Oh, well, you see who that is. It's our sister Kula. She's saying good evening, family.
Hey,
So thank you,
Kula.
thank you.
Kula, what's
Peace,
up, man?
peace and love to you.
I appreciate that.
You got it.
Loved your
Kula.
weekend. Your weekend looked incredible. Thank you for it.
She
Yeah.
looked incredible.
Did you
She's
see
been
the
doing
whole
it lately.
thing?
Did you see her outfit?
I did.
Was she all right? Yeah.
I ain't.
Was she
Her
all
fits
right?
was it.
Yeah.
I mean,
And
you
she's
know.
got an anniversary. I saw her post today. It was a spiritual one, and I'm so in that love and in that space. So I can see that that's important to you, and so we giving you some love
Yeah.
to
For
that
sure.
right now. Ain't no how Steppin with Marcus J live from New Den. Legacy in that radio. Let's get the usual suspects introduced here. You see the brother sitting across from me every single week. I'm happy to see him sitting there. He's my brother, partner, and friend. What's up, John? How are you doing, sir?
I'm well, sir.
It's good to see you.
It's good to be seen.
My brother, mi
Yes,
amigo.
sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. What's going on?
What's up, bro? You good?
Y'all so
Yeah, I'm
cute.
good.
Just
I'm
seen you
good.
like 2 days
Look,
ago.
yeah. But look, we got to get it in because I'm about to be gone.
Yeah, that's a whole other thing we might have to tell you.
Yeah.
And you know, has that Marcus J live from New Den Legacy Internet Radio. We're going to continue our salutations. We get in some continuous love. And Cooler says my weekend was hella dope. And we getting some love from a very, 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 very special listener. And I'm so happy and I'm so honored to have Star Justice Green checking in with us. She is saying peace to her daddy. Yeah. Ain't no ass that Marcus is so happy
Hey,
that you
Smooch.
rocking
Aw,
and rolling
he said,
with
look at
us.
him
We got so much.
grinning.
Yeah, I'm
He
grinning
said, hey,
for him.
Smooch.
Yeah,
Aw.
man, that is boo.
I love
yeah,
dads who love
yeah,
their
man.
girls.
Yeah, that
So
is a wonderful,
sweet.
wonderful thing. Thank you, my sister. Thank you for being a part of what we doing and rocking. And we love your daddy. So,
Yes,
ain't no ask still Marcus J live from New Dan Legacy in that radio. Happy and honored to introduce one of my favorite people, co-host of the show. She sits on my right side because she is my right hand. Our sister, your sister, my sister, Steppin.
Bo popping today.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm digging the thing. Like when Steph walked in, John said, "Row," and I was next to him going, "Row, row." Yeah.
Y'all are crazy.
What's up, sis?
Hey, always forward.
Man, it's good to see you, man.
Yes. It's,
Yeah.
you know, I'm
I just
always,
saw you like 2 days ago.
I love when we see each other
Yeah.
more than during the radio
Yeah,
show. You know,
absolutely.
and I saw it. It really lifted my spirits
Yeah.
to see you
Yeah,
and Mama J
Yeah.
and get to meet her for the first time.
absolutely.
And you know, I think the big thing too is I love how daddies love their girls.
Yeah. I
You
mean,
know,
you
the
already-
good dads who really love their girls, it's so good you can't even be jealous about it.
Yeah.
You just gotta love it for them.
It is one of the greatest, and I said this to her in front of you,
Yes.
and I'm going to say it in front of everybody. Being her father, my daughter's father, I call her Mama J. I don't really call out her government's,
They don't need
publicly. They don't need it. But Mama J, being her father is the greatest joy of my life. There is nothing that I've ever done in my life that has given me more joy than being her father. Period. Like nothing.
You know what kind of
There's nothing that compares to it.
Nothing.
y'all are so and you know what kind of
Nothing.
barrier that builds when a girl knows how much her dad loves her? Really, no fool can come her way because she's aware that she's been loved by someone. You know, like if you really set the standard,
That
you immediately put a bar there for your daughter. I mean, I don't think men realize this enough. Like, if you're having issues with your child's mother and all these other things, let it go purely for the sake of the person that you should be loving the most, and that's that girl or your boy. But
Yeah.
in this
Your
case,
children.
the way you love your daughter will set a precedent for who she allows in her life later.
Yeah.
It's a lot to be said for
Yeah.
it. So I
appreciate,
loved seeing it.
and I was glad. And thank you for pouring into her and the kindness that you gave her and the auntie vibe that you shared with her. You know, is something because of the friendship and fraternal relationship that you and I have built.
Absolutely.
I think that it was well received, you know, coming from her. She had met John before, but this was her first time and your first time meeting. Yeah, you guys met before. But just to before we get too far away, we all did meet up together. Shout out to our sister Ashley Jefferson.
Yes.
Happy birthday to her, and we all got an opportunity to see each other at Very Ashley at the Stony Park Mall at the boutique there called Very Ashley, and we were celebrating her birthday with a fashion show and just a wonderful, wonderful time. And it is an opportunity. You know, we often say as a three. That we should spend more time together outside of just doing the show, because we actually we
like
enjoy
each
we
other.
like each other, like we enjoy each other's company. And I think, you know, the dynamic that we have is a very, very, you know, different dynamic. And the part about it that I like more than anything else is that we are often expected to be a monolith, and John and I, no matter how much we have affection for each other and we enjoy each other's company, we are very different.
Yeah.
You know, we see the world differently. There's some similarities, but there's some, you know, pretty stark differences. But it doesn't matter. And with you being our sister and the way you put us over, to use a wrestling term, like you make sure that we feel loved and empowered, words of affirmation, that sort of thing, and we try to in turn reciprocate that with you.
Absolutely.
So as I've gotten older, I have learned that kind of exchange becomes a lot more important. Ain't no how stepping
Absolutely.
with Marcus J live from New Dan Legacy and that radio. And speaking of our sister Ashley, she's checking us out right now, and she's saying, I'm shouting out big love to the entire Ain't No Half Stepping team for coming out to the fashion and beauty birthday event at Very Ashley. Seeing you there fill my heart with so much joy. Y'all showed up for me. I love you all. So we appreciate you, Ashley. Thank
And
you.
I got an order to put in.
And
I
absolutely,
saw-
yeah, right.
So an
How
outfit
about
on the
that?
runway that I didn't see in the store, and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Holding out on me. I
Yeah.
want that. So
Yeah.
yes,
I'm
gonna order a little
It
something.
was
something.
an absolute fun time, and
Yeah.
you know the
And shout
biggest.
out, Ashley, put your website up. So
Yeah, since you,
so
if you
we
if you're
can
still here,
actually say it.
put
And
everything.
John, you got that
Put
for
it.
us? You-
Put everything
I
there.
don't want to say the wrong thing. I'll mess around and say the
I'll
wrong
get-
thing.
I'll get
It
you
used to
hooked
be
up,
shot very
Ashley.
Ashley. I don't know if it's shot very Ashley.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? And I'll tell everybody, right now it's tough to be a business owner.
Yeah.
Right? In any space. But when you own a brick and mortar and you have all these things that you need to be able to maintain, overhead and inventory and all these things that come up, and you got to look good while you're doing it, because you want people to come spend money. It's got to look good. She's got a beautiful space. Clothing look great. She's excited when you walk in the door. So go ahead and give her a little love. And if you can't make it to Stony Point here in Richmond,
Stony Point Fashion Park.
yes, then check her out at shopveryashley.com. John is right.
Yep.
Shopveryashley.com.
And she just gave it to us. Shopveryashley.com is there. And so definitely make sure she is our sister and Legacy Internet Radio alumni. We're very, very happy for her and proud of her. And so if you rock with us, we need you to roll with our sister Ashley Jefferson and shop her boutique, whether you are here local, because we know that the folks who listen to our show are often outside of the Richmond, Virginia area. So the website will be beneficial to you, so you can shop there and she will ship wherever you are. So definitely make sure that you patronize her. Like I said, if you rock with us, then you absolutely need to be rolling with her. Ain't no how step Marcus J live from New Den Legacy Internet Radio. So let's have a little fun, as we get ready to move towards the meat and potatoes of our show. I like to tell a story, which is going to lead me to where I'd like for you guys to kind of think about your own personal experiences. The year is 1982, and the year is 1982, and I'm about 8 years old, and I'm just now venturing off of the block. The block, Arlington Avenue, is where I grew up in Jersey City, and I'm meeting new people. All of 8 years old, meeting new people, right? And so I meet this kid. His name is Lamont. and he's a little older than me, about 3 or 4 years older than me. I guess he's probably, if I'm 8 years old, he's probably about 12 or 13. And he ended up being my that's my guy. He's almost like a big brother slash, good friend. And this one day we were at his house and we were watching television, and he puts on what looked like some boxing match. And it was just the weirdest thing. Until I looked at it a little bit closer, and this dude has me watching pro wrestling, and it's my first foray. And it's a guy in there called Tito Santana, who I immediately
Oh my
fall in love
God.
with. He said,
Arriba.
"Arriba, arriba," yeah, with the flying, with the flying forearm. And Lamont ended up becoming a good friend of mine over the years. We haven't spent a lot of time in recent years, but we did pretty good to keep in contact with each other up through our 30s, and after that we kind of lost contact. But it leads me to an interesting conversation, an interesting question. And so here is my little group icebreaker slash fun conversation. My question to you guys: think about an old friend that you had. Maybe you hung out with them as a young person, or maybe you hung out with them as a young adult. Let's talk about who that person is and who they left you and what they left you with. If something maybe you thought was a cool thing, maybe you're in contact with them, you're not. But anybody that knows me knows that pro wrestling is a huge part of who I am. It always has been. I've been a fan for 40 years. I don't miss pay-per-views. There are some who think that's a little bit goofy, and I don't care if you think it's goofy, because I love it. And I learned it from that friend when I was 8 years old, 40 years ago. So, do you have an old friend? You can take this anywhere you want. Think of this as an opportunity to shout out a friend that you remember from your youth that maybe you hadn't thought about in a very long time. But that was your friend and you missed them because when you were 10, you would have thought this friend hung the moon. You know what I'm saying? And as you guys are thinking about that, let me get some salutations in. Ashley has put the website in there, so I'm going to make sure that those folks that are watching and listening have that up there on the screen. Shout out to my brother and my radio mentor, the brother OG Tim Casey, is checking us out, who I know personally is a huge pro wrestling fan. And shout out to you because you agreeing with me. Not just because you agree with me, but shout out to you. Tito Santana was absolutely the man. That's what
He
Tim
was
Casey has
dope.
said. Reba! And Tito is now a gym teacher somewhere in New Jersey.
Are you
Yeah, I am
kidding?
not kidding. Tito Santana
Those kids don't even know what
he
they got in
became
the
he
room.
became a gym teacher in New Jersey. I still Mark said. All right, so Steph, I'll lead you off here. Think about an old friend. Tell us about an old friend. Give us a little anecdote. Anything you got?
I won't say her last name just in case, but her name was Rodrina. And, you know, New York kids are a different breed. Now that I'm older and I've raised kids outside of New York, I think back to kids in New York, even kids that would be in North Jersey, which is, suburban to us, outside of the city, but they are city kids. They're really forward. Like they are very brave, outgoing, worldly is the good thing. And at the time that I met Rodrina, I probably wasn't as worldly as she was. Like she, shout out IS 292 Margaret S. Douglas, Picking in Vermont. So for all y'all who say I'm from New York and can't label the school you went to, that's how you do it. You went to school at George. You're not from New York. but IS 292, it was a new school for me because it's not unusual in New York to not grow up on the same block your whole life. So I had moved from 1111 Ocean Avenue, which is a little more beautiful building.
I know 1111.
Beautiful high rise, with my grandparents in this very nice, high end New York high rise to a brownstone, nothing to sniff at on Vermont and Pitkin, and going to a school where I didn't know anybody. And she was in 8th grade. I was in 8th grade. I was having a tough time. There were a lot of things going on in my life as far as parents and whatnot. And I went to her house with her, and she had more freedom than I did. Like her mother was younger and but structured. And I just remember watching her in school and then going home with her after school and seeing how chill she was about being a kid. Like I was a stressed, high anxiety, high performance. I want to be great in school. I want to be great here. And I was still a little bit uh shy just because of some things I had experienced. So I was a little introverted at that point. And she lived in the Jets out there off of Vermont Avenue. And I had been down to South Jersey, back up to Brooklyn. This girl knew Brooklyn. And she didn't have any problem going wherever she wanted to go. She spoke to the bodega owners like she was their age. Like she was just so forward. And what I learned from her was confidence at any age. That it's important to own who you are, no matter how old you are. We were 12 years old. She was brash and outspoken to me because I was a little more quiet at that time. And, I hadn't figured out who Steph B was. It didn't take me, but I hung around her a year later. I knew. I knew exactly who it was. But she really gave me insight into just being good with yourself. And shout out to her. I mean, she stuck with me so much that about a month ago, I was like, I wonder what ever happened to her. So I went and searched on Facebook, like her name's unique. First and last name are pretty unique. I'm going to find her. How about she lives right here in Virginia? She is a Navy veteran, now a nurse. And we have kind of talked a little bit about catching up. She does some work here as a traveling nurse here in Richmond. But I am not, like, when she told me she went to the military, not surprised. New York's an easy place you either going to be something or you're not. I think both of you can acknowledge when you grow up in those environments, you're either going to be something or you're not. And I'm not surprised that she made something of herself. Vermont and Pickens Avenue out there in their Bed-Stuy, it's not an easy place to grow up. And around that time, this was 89, there was a lot going on. The crime rate didn't drop until about 92, and it took a huge drop around that time. But 89, you was still walking to school in the morning, and it was like, yo, I just heard gunshots, right? This girl was spot on with her level of confidence and navigation and no fear. And somebody says something she didn't like, other kids in the school, she didn't have a problem saying anything back. Quick-witted, cute, smart. Shout out to Rodrina. She was a dope example.
How Steph Marcus J. The part of that story, John, that really sticks with me is the serendipity of Rodrina now living in Virginia.
Yes.
And you having access, to maybe kicking it with her at some point. It's great. It's wonderful when we can reflect that in a way and make it to this stage of life and find that those folks that may have had a small piece of our lives made it this far as well. John, it gives me joy. I like to hear your story.
It's hard for me to do this kind of story because the people who are my friends are more like my family. And I have a core group who I've been friends with, who I've known and been friends with for 50 years, right? And I still have access to all of them. But there's one friend, it's kind of weird. One friend who really wasn't my friend, but was a friend of others in this core group that I'm speaking about. And it was a girl. We wasn't tight or anything, but her name is Mia. People know me. She lived. We were in Crown Heights. She lived in Bushwick, and I don't know why, but we would walk over from Crown Heights to Bushwick in a group and chill at her house. And
that's a little bit.
This is circa 79, 80.
That's a little risk. You crossing territory.
So maybe it was 80, between 79 and 81, right in that vein, right? And Mia's house, in my opinion, was the coolest place in the world. It changed my life. She's one of them big buildings on Bushwick Avenue, on the avenue, that had the circular driveway that they didn't use anymore. It was one of the big buildings, elevator. It was nice. But her parents were younger, right, than our parents. So they were crazy cool. They had all of Parliament Funkadelic music. They kept the albums on the floor against the wall, right?
Oh, I remember that setup.
Right? And
Hope
Mia's
they don't fall.
right. Mia's pops had the half-inch reel-to-reel tape, so he could play music for hours. We would sit there and chill right up until parents left. And I guess it don't matter now because we old as hell. But as soon as they left, we break out the weed. We cleaning the seeds out the weed on the album cover. Roll up, smoke, clean up. Mia was the first person in my age group that I ever seen serve a glass of soda. She brought the ice with a coaster and poured the soda into the glass. Listen, changed my life. A level of understanding of how to, like behave socially in a social environment, like being entertained in someone's home. She part of why we enjoy some of the. You've been in my home, and that comes.
Shout out
the
to
drinks
Mia.
in the bar.
You know what?
Yeah.
Shout out to Mia.
You're the reason I got this pretty colored drink tonight.
Yeah.
Cheers. Salute, sis. Salute.
I
love that.
I love that. And
Yeah.
this will be something that I try to remember to do every single week in some manner, or every single show, I should say. Because those three people are pivotal in our lives in a way that you wouldn't even think about. I recently discovered a new podcast. It's not a new television show, but it's a new podcast. I've been listening lately to the Oprah Winfrey Show. Oprah Winfrey Show has been repackaged into a podcast. Marcus J, you a dude. Oprah Winfrey Show went off the air over 10 years ago. Why are you listening to that? Because the stories that were told, the life lessons that were disseminated has given me peace at a stage in my life that I can appreciate it in a way that maybe the arrogant 15-year-old who just don't want to see a bunch of women on a screen talking about their stuff maybe couldn't appreciate in 1989 as I would now over 30 years later. And this particular piece that caused me to think about this was she had a story or a show about, is this the real me? Am I normal? The things that I do, the things that I feel, do other people go through this? Things like goofy shit, like, does everybody look back after they go to the bathroom? Like, how many times are you picking your nose a day? Do you lie to your kids when they 3 years old, get them to do shit? Like, does everybody do this?
Everyone does
You know what I mean?
one.
Like, everybody does this stuff. But one of the things that did come out of that was there are, let me see if I get this right. There are 10 decisions, 5 people, and 7 moments. All right. So 10 decisions, 7 moments, and 5 people in your life that if you can identify them, those are the things that will tell you what you need to know about the trajectory of your life. Now, I'm sure there's no scientific stuff with that. So don't go looking up, can I find these 10 people? It's really more about setting the template for your own personal reflection. But it made me think, like, who are those 5 people in my life? Like, I know who they are, and there's some honorable mentions, but what are those 7 situations? What were those decisions, that you've made in your life that caused you to be where you are? And it's a really, really cool thing to think about if you're at a stage of your life where you're doing a bunch of reflection. And so it's a really, really, really cool thing. Ain't No How Steppin' with Marcus J, live from New Den Legacy Internet Radio. Thank you and appreciation to our brother Tim Casey, because he has answered the question. I put it up on the screen, but I'm trying to get it here so that I can read it here and I can share with the listeners and viewers what your comment is here, Tim. So he says, Arthur Lee was my best friend in the world when I was 7 years old. We was totally inseparable, and then I moved away at 9, and we lost touch for the better part of 30 years. Then I took over a radio station called Global Scale Radio. And the first guy that comes through the door to inquire about starting a show was my long lost friend, Arthur Lee. And our first conversation after all those years was like we never had lost touch at all. And from that day on, we have been weekly phone conversations. And I am extremely. I'm sorry, I lost the rest of it. I'm trying to read it. He's extremely excited and happy about that. Tim, that is an awesome story, bro. I am glad that you shared it. And the reason why the reason why is because I'm glad that that touched you. But another reason why I'm so glad is because I was at Global Scale Radio. Tim Casey is the first guy that put Jay Grizzy on, who we had on last week, and Jay Grizzy put me on. And so there's probably a point that, with respect to my memory here, I wouldn't remember, but it's possible I may have been in the space with them together. So to know that that was something that was personal to you and in the context of what we're talking about, I appreciate you sharing that story. And how Steppin with Marcus J live from New Den Legacy and that radio. Let's get to one more thing before we get to the base of the show. And I know last week we talked about how we were going to talk about the Batman. I don't want to get into any plot points or anything like that, just because of the interest of time. The movie was such that if we did that, we would never get it out of that. But what I do want to talk about was 2 points. I'm going to serve it up. John, you up first. Steph, you finish it. And then we're going to get into the rest of the show, right? 2 things I wanted to talk about was 2 characters in this movie that I really wanted to get to. One really being the actor, Robert Pattinson. If we're talking about Batman, if we're talking about the actors who have played them, we can talk about Adam West and Christian Bale. We can talk about Val Kilmer, George Clooney, Michael Keaton. For me, just me, the first Batman that I saw was Adam West, was campy and goofy, and we didn't know any better. I don't care to really talk much about that Batman just because it was campy and goofy and we grew up with it, but it's not for me as I've gotten older. Batman, Michael Keaton for me is the definitive Batman, mostly because he was the first to take it live action. George Clooney and Val Kilmer were goofy and just uneven and weird ass, dumb ass movies for me. Christian Bale, I didn't care that much for, but I understand and respect that he was serviceable, and Ben Affleck was serviceable. But this Robert Pattinson, and people were throwing shade at him because it was Twilight and all that kind of stuff. I loved his portrayal. I loved more his portrayal of Batman and less Bruce Wayne, but I love the fact that Batman was 30 years old, was in year 2 of him being Batman. It's the first time we saw Batman that young. I loved it, loved it, loved it. I'll leave it there. I also love the other character, which I thought to me was probably as important as Batman was, Gotham City. I thought Gotham City was absolutely pivotal to the tone and mood of this movie. We can talk about other characters. If that's your choice, you can. But for me, I thought Gotham City was dope because I loved how dark it was. I loved how you didn't know what you were going to get. I love the fact that it was very clearly and obviously New York City.
Yep.
I love the fact that there were certain things that if you're from that area, they were unmistakable. If you weren't from that area, it was just a movie that's not that serious. But those of us who know that town and know that area, it jumped off of the screen for us, up to and including Gotham Square Garden. I thought was a very nice touch. So those were the 2 things that I wanted to talk about with this movie. Notice I didn't touch any plot points. I would ask that you 2 do not touch any plot points. Say whatever you want to say about this, and then we're gonna move on to the show. John, you got it first.
I think I would have liked the movie more if it was the reboot of Catwoman. I do not. To me, the Batman from the animated series is Batman in my head, like forever. The Batman, he also that characterization of Batman animated series and the Justice League animated series. That guy is Batman. There was another guy in Justice League's Action. He was kind of good too, but it comes back to
We are getting a call. Ain't no Hastel Marcus J Live from New Dan Legacy and Radio. Caller, you are on the live line. What's your name and what is your comment?
First and foremost, I'm the one and only Mr. LP Steven Sykes. Blessings to you all, and I hope of the 10-7-5 thing. I hope I'm somewhere at least an honorable mention. But for me, one of the decisions that I made was to being part of Legacy Internet Radio. So that was a pivotal moment in my life. So I just want to get that in there.
Mr. LP, Mr. LP Steven Sykes. Hey, look, anytime I hear your voice, it's a good day for me. I appreciate you. You are absolutely one of the most important people to me because of what you have done for me personally, the friendship that I have with you personally, and the examples that you've set. Many of them we fight on and we build on and we tug and we pull. But I honestly believe in the phrase "you push me and I will pull you." And I think with that tug of war, the relationship that I've built with you and you've built with me, absolutely puts you in line to be in that number. And for you to say that being a part of what we've done at Legacy and that radio is important to you, I appreciate that. Go ahead and continue. Thank you.
Yes, sir. I wanted to just to throw in, to be honest, and this may be other than Adam West, and I like Christian Bale, but I just have to say the gentleman y'all were referring to, and I may have missed part of it due to the time delay, but Kevin Conroy from
Yes.
Batman the animated series. Hey, James Woods and Diedrich Bader, those guys that paid in a lot of the things from the DC animated universe. From the movie universe were definitive because they gave them a lot of character and everything else, and everything else was secondary. And there was the first guy that also did it in the radio and the black and white films before Adam West. So that's what, honestly, I saw that before I saw Adam West. But I think, the Robert Pattinson version, it was a lot more mental and psychological. I think it was a little bit of a difference for me because I'm used to seeing the Batman already in that he's much better, what have you. Like this one kind of got me where he was a lot more. I'm looking for all the other things like the detective, the craftiness, the ingenuity, everything else. This one was a little bit clumsy and all these other different things for me. It just wasn't clean. But I understand, again, it's year one. So I got past, I've long moved past that, but I appreciated everything that, the movie offered a lot more mental than I think people were looking for, the emo aspect of it. But I think it offered something of a different take that we needed to see.
Mr. LP Steven Sykes, it's always a pleasure and an honor and a joy when you appreciate when you join us. When I get to hang out with you, I appreciate you. So, real quick, your final word. What you got? Anything going on? Anything you want to share, promote? Anything in your final word here?
Yes, I got three quick things. One, anybody that's out there, I'm doing a variety of different things, but one of the quick things that we're looking to do is I'm trying to make sure some people get some information on a lot of different grants and things that's out there. Unleashthedata.com. Grant research and writing team, we can definitely find some things, so please reach out there. Two, I may have missed part of this conversation before, I'm not sure, but I'm wondering why where in the world Richmond is somehow want to be the king of fish and crabs, where Richmond is not Boston or DC or Seattle. Just want to put that out there. And three, the other quick thing is that I appreciate the fact that everybody's entrepreneurial spirit, but I'm having a big problem with everybody with the new CBD and every other street corner, and especially our people of color getting involved in the CBD business. Nothing wrong with that, but it's just that we all can't run into it. We need so many of us into STEMs and lawyers, doctors, all these other different businesses and fields. We just draining ourselves where all of a sudden you can go down Whole Street or, any of the other streets where you commonly find majority of us. There's so many of these businesses and so many people doing privately. We're draining our own resources within the bank. We need to, elevate ourselves. And that's the first thing that we ran to when there's opportunities for other great businesses. And especially the fact that we're involved where there's so many of us that are still in jail for it, and we haven't learned our lessons from prohibition. So that
Mr. LP, we appreciate you being a part of it, man. Thank you so much for rocking with us. Keep listening, man. You have a good day. Be safe, and I love you, brother.
Thank you. Love you all. Please be safe. And hello, Queen. Hello, sir. I didn't know if that got through, but I appreciate
We
you
got
both.
you, brother. Thank you for rocking. We gonna roll with you. Ain't no half Steppin, Marcus
Not a
J.
problem.
Live from New Den, Legacy Internet Radio, Mr. LP, Steven Sykes, Legacy Internet Radio royalty and alumni.
So,
John, finish your point and send it to Steph.
Yeah. So as I was saying, he kind of, said a lot of what I was going to say with regards to the character that the actor's playing now. To me, that's not Batman, but I guess that's this generation's Batman, this emotionally vulnerable person, right? I can't see Batman being emotionally vulnerable. He's a psychopath, is what he is. Actually, he
More
just
like
happened
sociopath.
right? Who experienced a tremendous trauma as a child and became a vigilante. And he started out as a murderer vigilante, and then worked his way into not killing to honor his parents, and more of that was his thing. He won't kill, but if it comes down to it, he would kill, if he had to. So, but this character that this guy portrayed, and he portrayed well. He's a quality actor. Nothing against the actor, but as we are transitioning, and Steven mentioned the emo aspect, I don't, and no disrespect to the millennial or Gen Z guys, right? But to me, I don't see how Batman can be Batman in that demeanor, in that personality, because it's contrary to Batman. But that is also transitioning into all of our superheroes, because if you watch the CW, every single superhero and supervillain is so emotionally vulnerable and just out open with their feelings all over the place. Like
The
God.
Flash is very vulnerable.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That
So,
is a good
but that
point.
was my thing with the Batman.
And maybe
stuff.
that's fine. Like I'll say originally I was a terrible shout out to my ex-husband for tolerating me when he was trying to watch the Marvel X-Men cartoon all the time on Saturdays. And I was
Oh, yeah.
confused. It was really good and I liked it, but I was confused because I didn't understand the multiverse. And once I understood the multiverse, I took off running. So I like mindless TV because I'm usually working while TV is on. I love the CW shows, but I will agree with you. And you got to remember who it is trying to appeal to. I love Robert Pattinson as Batman, though. And maybe it's because I watched Twilight with my daughter. That could have an influence on it.
Who doesn't like an emotionally vulnerable man?
Ain't no hashtag Marcus J. Live from New Den, Legacy in that radio. Caller, you on the live line. What's your name? What's your comment?
Yeah, it's John. I was just calling to get my little input on this subject.
What you got?
But yeah, so basically, this version of the movie, I was disappointed because they played it safe. They marketed it as a horror movie that was going to be very explicit and very brutal, and it wasn't. I agree with John about the fact that everything is emotional with this character. At this point, he's kind of young, looking to play Batman, so I can't really relate to that. The Batman I know is like very adult themed. You gotta understand, Batman was created like in the 30s, so like all the mob aspect and the fact that he doesn't use guns, very adult orientated, and it feels like they emasculated a lot of my favorite superheroes because they're trying to sell a movie, and I get it. So, I didn't think this movie was great, and I didn't think it was trash, but it was just mid. It was just very by the numbers, very just, it hit all the points it had to, but it didn't excite me. It did not, the Riddler was very, like school like like not very Riddler-esque. But it is what it is. I mean, I guess that would be the Riddler today, school shooter, not like a criminal.
Right.
So I don't know.
I can
That's
dig
my
it.
take on it.
No, I can dig it. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J. John. Thank you for your comment, brother. Keep listening. Call us back if you want to. All right.
All right, no problem.
You got it. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J. Finish your point.
Yeah, I mean, I do. I like Robert Pattinson as Batman. I kind of like the emotional connection that I think it's for the trajectory of maybe where they're going with this. You finally get a little bit of insight into him, but I will agree it wasn't as so far. I haven't finished, but as gritty as the rest. And I do love the setting. I love the setting because every other time it's just been Gotham. But you're right. To me, it has never been, it's like, it's New York because we call it New York Gotham, but it's never been as clearly New York as it was in this film. And I do kind of like a younger Batman too.
Yeah.
I think, by the time we got to him and all those other ones, like Christian Bale was the hardest Batman for me to process. It was almost too traumatic.
Yeah.
And it was like, why is he going through all this psychological mess? Like he's elevating it himself. And now he's going out in the wilderness to find himself. And one thing about the graphic novels has always been, while he was sociopathic and some of the things that you're literally a vigilante.
Yeah.
You're a stalker for all intents and purposes too. I never thought that he, during the graphic novels, was so as off kilter as Christian Bale portrayed him. The thing was, he's Bruce Wayne. He makes solid decisions about certain things. He's very capable in his daytime life. He's a playboy because he doesn't want the attachment of family and all those things after losing his own. I don't like that when they portray him as being supremely imbalanced when he's in Bruce Wayne mode, and several other Batmans they tried that with. So I think this is that thing to pull that back a little bit. And then when you see him as Batman, you get a deeper connection there to his sociopathic nature.
Ain't no hashtag Marcus J. Live from New Den Legacy Net Radio. Shout out to Alan Shipman. Alan's been listening to us. He's got a few comments in. He says peace and blessings. Alan's comments I've been putting up on the screen. Other than that, he's
Shipman.
commenting. He's putting some comments in. He's talking about Batman. The one quick one that I'll read. Pattinson probably would have made a better Robin or Nightwing than Batman. I don't agree with that, but I respect it because I have already put Pattinson number 2 for me behind Michael Keaton already after one movie.
And
Christian,
I really hope that he's gonna.
They've already
Okay.
greenlit the second one. And Christian Bale always felt like because Christopher Nolan had a stranglehold over the character at the time. I always felt like Christian Bale was forced on us just because he happened to be the Batman at the time. And that's not to say there's anything wrong with him, but he just brooded in a way that was a little darker than what I would have liked, which leads me to our first topic of the night. And as we say at this state of the show,
real quick?
Okay, before I say that,
Just want to shout one thing out. Alan Shipman, I'm saying it here right here, right now. We talk too much politics. The midterms are coming. There's lots of things that'll be happening. I'm going to be expecting you to be a guest on Legacy Internet Radio.
Well, I'll be damned. I think you've just been called out, Alan Shipman. Yeah, I think you've been called out, and I'd be interested in hearing what his response to that would be. And as we do at this stage of the show, my corniness is where I say every week, let us move on. Yeah. We're going to go this way. But yeah, Alan says that he would be honored. So Alan and Steph, you guys work that out. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J. Live from New Den Legacy area. All right. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And I didn't do any research about any of that. I'll be transparent, open about that. I want to speak freely and from the heart when it comes to that. And I'll say this, as I've gotten older, I have become a lot more aware of mental health challenges. Like many of us, when you know more, you do when you know better, you do better. With age comes wisdom, hopefully, because there's some dumbass old people walking around. That's just my commentary. Ain't got nothing to do with what I'm trying to say. That's just me throwing shade at stupid people. Anyway, mental health is a thing that I have become a lot more aware of as I have looked at my own life. As you notice, the icebreaker or the fun topic that we did tonight, I purposely went back to childhood. That was strategic. The reason why I did that is because I wanted to talk about that with regards to mental health awareness, and that manifests itself in different ways for different people. There are those who have mild forms of mental health challenges, and then there are those who have more severe, more outwardly identifiable versions of mental health issues and or challenges, I should say. And I think that we should be cognizant of all of that. Um, I'm someone that suffers from anxiety. I've never purposefully, consciously, publicly said that. So I guess I just came out. When we use the phrase "come out," it means we said some shit about ourselves that maybe we ain't other people to know. We didn't want other people to know, and so yeah, I guess I just come out. And that's me paying homage to folks who normally use that term, because the reality is, whenever you speak of your truth and you come out, that is a moment of pride, not anything more or less than that. It's prideful. So that's why I want to mention that, because when you come out and you speak your truth, this is a time for those who know us, love us, respect us, understand us, and even those who may not, to understand that what we're dealing with is important and indigenous to us, and it is worthy of respect from everybody. Having said that, there are many of us who walk amongst us who have mental health challenges, and they are worthy of respect and love and support. Mention I have anxiety. What that looks like, I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't know really how to say it, but I think about the same shit over and over again, and I don't know how it's going to turn out. And I wish that it would turn out this way, but then it might turn out that way. And if it turns out that way, then I struggle. But then my struggle is my own. I don't say anything to anybody, but because I don't say anything to anybody, then I get balled up in a knot inside, and it's in my head, and I'm like, I try to figure out a way to maybe make it so that it's not so stressful and all of that. Whereas someone who may not have that kind of experience might be looking at me and say, "Why are you tripping, Marcus J? It's not that serious." Well, to me, it is. And someone that has mental health challenges, maybe it's not anxiety, maybe it's something different. May have their own challenges, and what we should not do is tell them to get over it. Whatever
You feel better in the morning.
Yeah, you know what I mean? You be all right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I don't know how to do this part. This is me being transparent. This is me being supportive, or at least trying to be, and me opening it up to you guys and setting a round table. I went on that little mini rant to show that it is very common for those of us who seem to have it all together to sometimes struggle with mental health challenges. And how that looks on different people is determined by the fact that we're different people. John, you're opening salvo on this, and Steph will follow.
I often talk about black folk in America, and a lot of people feel that that comes from a political standpoint, but it really doesn't. It comes from an emotional mental health standpoint, and it's not all on black folk, although we are the presentation of negativity in this country, and by default the world. But other people also suffer the same, and individually some do more than others, because we are given a facade, right? A storefront to look at in the world today of lifestyle. That is not the true reality. The true reality of things is that, again, 2% of the world controls 80% of the world's resources, and 98% of us fight over 20% of what's left. And in that struggle, we have issues. We are consistently lied to, lied on, lied about. So much so that we begin to believe the lies, and the conflicts in our own mind and in our emotions drive us to some functional form of insanity. We walk around crazy. And you get things like my guy in New York a few weeks ago.
Yeah, on the train.
Yeah, the new age Colin Ferguson, right? That was his name, right?
Yes, that
Yeah, my
was
guy.
on the
Yeah.
LIRR.
Yeah, because it's like, and people don't understand it, but you really got to know, right? It's always this point. It's a very thin line emotionally that if once you cross it, something about that switch can't be repaired, and you're gonna do something really, we spoke earlier about friends and stuff, and one of my friends who I've known for 50 years, he and I converse a lot, and we talk about different things, and he's often tells us, and I'll say something, and he said, well, John, you're a sociopath, right? So, and I go, not really. Going, yeah, not really. Like, really break it down. And part of what it is, part of why he says that is and I'm working on it, but I don't know how to express empathy, right? I don't understand why people fail. I don't understand why people are not happy. And I don't understand why people repeatedly do stupid things. And no matter how people try to explain it to me it's just dumb, right? And often I'm on this show and we're talking, and you hear me, I call the world stupid, and that's part of it. And part of that is my traumatic experiences throughout my childhood that caused me to not be able to. I don't believe in second chances, because the one of my favorite words in the English language is the word capable, right? The mob uses it. Is he capable? That's what they want to know. Is he capable? That means, will you commit murder for what's going on? So once a person does something, why am I going to give you an opportunity? If I didn't like it, why am I going to give you an opportunity to do it again?
Because they're capable, right?
Yeah, look, don't tell me that you change. If you did it once, that means you can do the thing. So if I don't like what you did, I'm not going to give you another chance to do it again. Right? So I don't. But again, part of that has to do with where I lived, how I was raised, the world around me, and the contradiction in between what I thought, what I saw, what I was told, and then what I learned and what I read and researched for myself. It's, at a certain point it becomes overwhelming. But what I would like to do, just in the interest of this being Mental Health Awareness Month, people have really vilified the word retardation, and we need to have a separation within these conversations about mental health, because there are people who are slower emotionally, socially, and mentally, and they have what's known as disabilities on a certain level.
Developmental delays.
Okay, developmental. Thank you for that.
I'm trying
my political correct police. Thank you. These people have these issues, and they are somewhat medical, and a lot of it is,
and
physical,
and
some psychological. That, I believe, has its own lane. Although it's in the roadway of mental health, I think it has its own lane, and we shouldn't talk about that as much as we need to talk about people who don't suffer those issues, but still have, it's about conflict, still have these conflicts emotionally and mentally. And the stigma behind seeking help, even if it's just having we had a conversation before we came on air. That was something that needed to happen. That had to do with emotional things, and expressing ourselves and thinking about how something made you feel, right? And 10 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have never had that conversation.
It was dope too.
Yeah. So, but yeah, Steph.
Yeah, I agree with you. The two things are separate, right? Developmental delays, and intellectual disabilities are different than what mental health is all about. And over the weekend, Naomi Judd committed suicide. And from the Winona and Naomi, the Judd, is it the Judds? She committed suicide in her 70s, and she had long been struggling with depression. Prior to that, two college athletes, both women, Caucasian, committed suicide. And when just seeing those stories over the week, I started thinking about how many Black people are living in an air of PTSD. I can remember being a young woman who was married and had two small kids. By the time I was 25, I had a 5 and 3-year-old. I had been in the same marriage since I was 18, and had not really not had a really good positive experience of my own as it related to how I viewed the people who should have set those standards for me. The two individuals that should have set that standards. I was very fortunate that my grandparents, demonstrated a certain standard. But when I got to that age was when I realized that we go through so much, we don't get it addressed, and then we go into parenting. And then we don't know who we are. We struggle with that. We pass some of those things on to our children if we don't become aware. And then they go on and do the same thing. And it's somewhat repetitive in our community because of the stigma, because of our attachment to religion often. I was reading a study again over the weekend, just because that whole thing happened with Naomi Judd. There was several things. One, in 2019, a study came out and said that Black Americans are still 4 times less likely to admit that they feel some kind of emotional or mental trauma, 8 times less likely to seek help for it. Then I started digging a little deeper, and it's interesting that because I had no clue we were talking about this. You mentioned it very briefly in the group chat earlier this morning. But then I started, thinking about some statistics I had seen before about the Black population. And one of them that was interesting was among Black people, suicide rates are highest during adolescence and young adulthood. That's how unprepared some of our youth are to face this world. And it tells you if they're in your home, and it's not to put blame on the parents, but if they're in your home and our youth are experiencing or having higher suicide rates during adolescence and youth than in young adulthood than anyone else, it tells you a lot about our inability to manage it ourselves before we become the caretakers of other people. Then it went on to say, and the interesting thing was, then it declines through the age of 85. Like it just continues to decline from 25 forward. For white people, it was exactly the opposite. It was not high during youth. They were not experienced at the same level, because if you think about it, for a lot of our youth that are experiencing these levels of trauma, not being able to deal with it is the largest reason that it ends up leading to suicide. They don't have the resources. The fact that Caucasian children, same age range, are not going through that tells you a lot about the resources that are available to them. When they begin to commit suicide, it peaks around 45 to 54. And doing the research, it was a lot about financial disappointments, losing out. It was things that were totally different than what was being addressed for the younger people of our communities. Go ahead.
But I think what ties both of those things in is a point of conflict when you realize you sold a bill of goods, right? It happens to the black youth because they were led to believe that, just,
You think
go
about
to school,
yes,
get ready, boom, boom, boom,
get
and
a degree and everything
get a
will
job.
be great.
Well, nah,
Mhm.
right? Or life is gonna be like this, and it's not like that.
If
Or
you just go to college,
right,
and if you think about the fact that
or go to the
that
military, or
or
go
go to
with
the
or
military,
do something. Make it get out of teen years,
and you'll be all
and
right.
you'll be all right,
Yes.
right? Because the death rate is so high expected for. Now with the white folk, I think it is that they've been sold a bill of goods. Go to college, get a job, get a house, start a family, da da da. And right around 45, that illusion begins to deteriorate really quick.
And it can deteriorate
Right?
for anyone. But they had an expectation and they
Right.
experienced it longer.
Exactly.
They lived
they lived
good,
but,
so
right.
to speak.
Well, they lived the illusion longer.
Of good, right.
They didn't have to face the reality as quickly. But what it comes down to, back to, because I just, when you mentioned it, what came to mind was the fact that what we see in reality is, like, you think about the movie The Matrix, it's not really real. We get bombarded with all this imagery. Like,
Everything you see on
as a
social
marketing
media.
salesperson, everything in this country, and then subsequently the world, is advertising.
Let me tell you
Everything is
something.
advertising.
I sit with business owners, mature people, all of the time. I was just telling a friend of mine that the thing about opening a business is you don't have to know anything about business to do that. But to be successful significantly and long term, you have to be educated. Whether it's that you're getting it traditionally or by paying attention or certifications and all these other things. We have now gone through a phase during the pandemic where people were so disillusioned with their experiences in corporate America that a lot of people jumped into a space that is extremely stressful, which is entrepreneurship. I know this because it's my lived experience. One thing I noticed after watching closely, because again, that is my world, sales and business consulting. I hear lots of conversations. People divulge a lot to me that I can't divulge. And I will see those same people, and on social media, everything is about, look how great it all is. And then I'll hear another person that will say, well, I know you work with so and so. Look how great they're doing. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, no, they're not. Their social media is well produced. But when I'm speaking to them, they're stressed about making the rent, paying the bills, being with their family, all of those things. And so I think that that has a huge part to play in it, is the marketing of how life is versus the marketing of life, how life should be versus how it really is. And then when we see it on Instagram, I mean, you think about how many young women they said are depressed because of Instagram. Facebook actually did a study that admitted, an internal study that admitted the impact that Instagram, which they own, Meta owns, has on young women in their emotional and mental health. And then they hid the study away because, to John's point, they need you to live the illusion so you keep purchasing the product. The last thing I want to say on this is, and you brothers have probably a better connection to him than I do, but shout out to James Harris. Shout out to that brother. Because
yes, sir.
And if anybody can look up his website real quick, then we throw it out there. But it's the mental health movement that he's created. Black men are 3 times more likely to commit suicide than Black women. 3 times. And if you think about what that immediately does to the community long term, it removes fathers and brothers, uncles. It removes you. And that rate is not a mistake. It is a result of intentional abuse by the system in which people live. It is a result of individuals being of toxic masculinity telling you not to deal with your issues, to fight through the pain. It is a result of the inequitable expectations that are placed on men. I will say that, this belief that if you fail, the whole house will fail type thing, instead of failure just being a part of life. We're not always going to win. And then this feeling that everything is coming at you. When if I know, if I'm processing George Floyd, Trayvon Martin, all of these things outside of the women that I'm processing, but this influx of black men being harmed and hurt. And then I'm worried about the black men that I love out in the world. I know what it's doing to you inside of your head. Or I should say, I can only guess what it is doing in your head. So shout out to James Harris. If we could just drop, put his link in there, because brothers, there's no reason for you to leave this world feeling or walk through this world feeling anything less than how great you are. Just like there are shitty white men, there are shitty black men, right? And so we're not going to put this label on you that that's all you are. You will fail from time to time, and we all will learn to accept it, as we should. And you should be entitled to have your failures, pick yourself up, say I'm sorry, and keep it moving. And we owe you that. So please seek the help that you need, because 3 times dying by the hand of suicide and leaving your families and the people that need you, it weakens our community.
Absolutely. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J live from New Den Legacy in that radio. Shout out to our sister Mish Mish. She's checking us out. She's saying hello to everybody. She's agreeing with what's being said. And thank you for rocking with us. We roll with you. It's important. I'm glad that you mentioned James Harris. He's a friend of mine. He's a friend of the show. He's Legacy and that radio alumni. He's been in this room here with us. Mental health, men to heal, is the message that he's put out, platform. And the platform. Thank you, and the book that he's written. And if you know him, by all means, support him. And if you don't know him, you can search mental health. If you spell mental health and men to heal. And social media as well as Google, you'll see him come up. But he's a local Richmond, Virginia therapist. He is someone
service member.
He's a veteran. He's a father to a young, husband.
Congratulations.
And this is someone who has made himself vulnerable to the point where he has become an example to us men to show vulnerability in this way, because I think it takes men to show other men that it's okay. I was talking to a brother today, in my usual vocation, different from this. And, this is a brother who's always talking about his daughter and his wife. And so in the course of our usual vocation, his wife called, and she always seems to call him, talk to him. And so, he takes the call, and I could dig it. And then I said to him, when it was over, I said, man, I think that's real cool. He's like, what? I said, you always take the call. He's like, it's my wife. And I said, the fact that it was so like nothing to you, it's my wife. That's important. Yeah. That's the rub. Like, that's the part that I'm giving you your flowers on, because it's your family, whether it's your wife, your daughter, your children, your mama, whoever it is, it's your family. And they come first. And I appreciated that. And I said that to him. And he's like, man, nobody ever says that to me. And I said, this dude's a couple of years older than I am. Right. And so I said to him, one of the most important things that we can do as men is to show each other love, and to show each other compassion, and to show each other grace. And we as men, we get so caught up in the machismo of being men. And then there's a whole bunch of bullshit ass homophobia that's wrapped up in that too.
Right.
We gotta keep it funky on it. We gotta keep it no homo. You gotta keep it funky. Like, every chick don't want you because you just who you are, and you not appealing to every chick. So every dude ain't gonna want you just because he like dudes. Like, you sound crazy with that. Like, if that's your thing, like, really? Like, come on. Like, come on. Like, you could be the baddest, dopest dude, the toughest, smartest, most attractive dude in the world, and there's some chick looking at you like you corny.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And maybe there's a gay dude looking at you like you corny. Like, so homophobia is dumb as hell, and you're not scared of gay dudes. So the word is not even applicable. You're not scared. You're just a bigot. You know what I'm saying? So that was my opportunity to go on that rant. Obviously not necessarily related to what we supposed to be talking about. I just wanted to say all that. But I love James because James makes it comfortable for you to speak your truth. And sometimes, like with me being an emotional dude, sometimes that can be difficult for guys to be that way. And I'm not necessarily sure that it's applicable to mental health, but I think it's applicable to authenticity. And I think folks trying to hide their authenticity can lead to some sort of mental health issues because you're not being you.
Absolutely.
You're not being you. You hide behind being you. That doesn't mean that everybody needs to see all of your goodies. Like everybody ain't got to know all your stuff. But
and
I
everybody's
think,
not worth sharing with because everyone can't assist you or wants to.
right.
So you put that in the hands of people that you know care for you.
Yeah. Mish Mish, let me get these comments in, John, you up. Mish Mish says, right, to only imagine if she's absolutely speaking right now. I can dig that. Yes, she does. Let's see. That's a fact. It applies to both for sure. That's Mish Mish. So thank you. Our sister Michelle. Thank you, Michelle. One of our longtime listeners and supporters. Thank you. His work is very important and very needed. She is referring to our brother James. John, you got the con.
I think if we if we speak about and we stay in our community, one of the biggest issues, just as an observation, I reserve the right to be wrong, but I think one of the biggest issues dealing with mental health and with black men and the high rate of suicide is black men don't understand well, they might understand internally, but they don't outwardly readily recognize the fact that a family is a need of a man, right? Something in us, right? Someplace in us is this thing that says, I should have a family. I should be caring for and protecting a group of people. It's written in us, right? But we push away from a natural instinct. We try to create a false narrative around it, and we don't embrace it the way we should. And it's no longer a conversation father to son, right? Where, hey, man, when are you gonna? I don't hear parents saying, and I'm guilty, hey, when are you gonna settle down? When are you gonna establish a family? When they used to, when organized weddings was a thing, the family would already be putting it together about these two kids that's going to get together and these two families that's going to get together, and the next thing you know, we're going to have a community, right? Because of these families. But the natural instinct of men is something, and then you go back to like what Marcus said about the homophobia, which to me is an oxymoron. But what it is I think mostly is being uncomfortable with being uncomfortable in a situation of unfamiliar things. And because we have been bombarded with hyper masculinity, what some people call toxic masculinity as well, it is juxtaposed to what would be perceived as the open, carefree, emotionally very expressive nature that some people say homosexuality has. And it makes other men recoil because they've been told to be these knuckle draggers, right? And you put all of that into the mix, and then with black folk, you go back to the natural obstacles and the systemic racism and white supremacy on top of everything else, and then all of us as a people being lied to, the women, the men, putting us against each other, women against women, men against men and women against each other, completely dissolving the nucleus of family. In the 60s, the politicians realized that the movement was about the black family. Right? The black family made it a successful civil rights movement. So they said we can't have that anymore. So they set up the social systems and reward systems. If you break up this family, we'll give you money. Right? And then the drugs into the community. And then the big push after they put the drugs in the community, then they created the war on drugs. Right? And here we have the situation we're in.
Ain't no half Steppin, Marcus J, live from New Den, Legacy in that radio. Want to move on to another topic here. This is still on the table, so if there is anybody who cares to jump back into this or bring this up, call us to talk about it or make a comment, I'll put it on the screen and we can talk about it if you choose to. But I want to move on and I want to talk about a different thing. I want to talk about Charlemagne the God. Haven't talked about Charlemagne the God and the Breakfast Club on this show often. It's been quite a while since we have. But the reason why we're going to tonight is about some comments that have been consistent from Charlemagne. He's been confronted about them. Charlemagne the God has been confronted about some problematic views that he has had from our sisters. And he's on a show recently. And I am very, very apologetic if I say her name wrong, but my sister who's on my right hand and is my right hand, and I love her so much for always backing me up. She knew I was gonna say it wrong. Z-Way Famuda has a show on Showtime. And Charlemagne was on that show recently. Thank you, Steph, by the way. More than you know. Really, really, really.
I knew we
Yeah, man. I was about to tell you, I was about to tear it up. But Charlemagne was on that show. And I think the point of him going on that show was to try to maybe get his message out and set some things straight. I wonder if he has made it worse for himself, but we're going to play this clip and we're going to listen to it and then we'll talk about it on the other side. Take a listen to Charlemagne the God on Ziwi's show here on Showtime. Take a listen.
So you've had beefs with Lil Mama, Monique, Cassie, Azalea Banks, your own co-host, Angela Yee. The list goes on and on and on and on and on.
Beefs is a strong word.
You've maligned black women. So why do you hate black women exactly?
No, I love black women. And I mean, I guess I can see where people would say that if you want to take those 3 or 4 times and put them together in a montage.
Come on.
The following was paid for by Z-Ways America.
Why would I get what legends get?
Because their resume recently is better. You can just prove it on paper.
With music industry people say I'm dope all the time.
Really?
So
Can't ask Brandy what that mouth do though.
No, you cannot.
That's a compliment. Don't worry. Right now you're like a cactus.
But you're the person that's promoting that.
Come on, man.
Yeah, all the totally different.
I know. Well, yes, you're a different person every year. Come on.
Isn't that good though? It's almost like they're ashamed of, their past. Shouldn't we always constantly evolve? What's the point of doing New Year, New Me?
I agree with you, right? Like, I think that you can't be like locked into your own past. But then it's like, let's say I get paid $5 a day to punch you in the face, and I punch you in the face every day for 10,000 days, and I make $50,000. And then on the 10,001 day, I say, I will not punch anyone in the face.
What if I get the money back?
So would you say to this camera that you're pledging to donate 100% of your salary to Black women's reparations?
100%?
100%.
I will pledge that I will help Black women make a lot of money.
That's so vague.
No, I do it now. I mean, number one, I got 4 daughters. That's
Yes.
number one. And I'm married to a beautiful Black woman.
Okay, so you have a wife and daughters.
Yes.
Brave.
Brave. So you have a wife and daughter.
You have a wife
Brave.
and daughter. Okay. You know how stuff, Marcus J. Live from New Den, Legacy Internet Radio. All right. So we heard the clip. We had to set up. Steph, you up first. What you got?
So you can remember how many years when Wendy Williams was not on television but was on radio, how everyone talked about, she's the queen of the setup. She, you shouldn't even go on her show. And look up they never let her live down the Whitney interview. And then when she started her TV show with Hot Topic, they never let her live those things down either. As a matter of fact, people celebrate her downfall because of her interaction. Meanwhile, Charlemagne has for years been aggressive, demeaning, often embarrassing in the language, tone, and nature of his engagement with Black women. And the clips she played, he even had to admit, oh, I look bad. Well, those clips are just the minimum. The minimum. I can remember, it's like anytime a Black woman would come on the show, he had to harp on the most painful or embarrassing thing that is going on in her life until she just couldn't take it anymore and was beginning to argue with her. And again, he had that same issue with Angela Yee, who is his co-star. But no one held him as closely accountable as they've held Wendy Williams. It goes to show the amount of room given to masculinity a lot of times in spaces like that, and the expectation that the woman is supposed to play soft. Now, he worked for Wendy at one point. He started his career with her. His angle is not very different than hers. He's just not the host of the show. He's a co-host. And so his voice isn't always the loudest, although it has now become the most lucrative on that show as far as being a brand. And when he went to, after being confronted about his treatment of Black women, he went exactly to where I hear a lot of men go. I have a Black daughter. I have a Black girlfriend. I have a Black wife. It's giving, I have Black friends after a hate crime. You can be married to a Black woman. You can also be dating or birthing a Black woman. I'll just say it. There's plenty of shitty men out there who are in the dating pool that would kill somebody if they did a quarter of what these men are doing to their own daughter. Plenty of them. Having a daughter is not an explanation or a defense for how you engage with other women. It's not a natural suggestion that you're not making a mistake. And when he went to that, that's why she said brave. Like, oh, okay. Like you did some big brave thing by having Black daughters and marrying a Black woman. And therefore it must mean that everything you've said and done isn't really triggering or testy or emotional or aggressive. Charlemagne, yes, he's transitioning his brand and he's softening up so that people on the other side of the aisle like him a little bit more because he knows where the money will come from if he wants to go mainstream. But I will say this, prior to hitting this space of where he wants to make money from the media that doesn't look like him, he's been nothing but toxic where Black women are concerned. And the fact that he's been allowed to expand this way, when he even had some allegations out there that were really, really uncomfortable and scary, it says a lot about our community and what we allow when it comes to Black women, about how Black women feel. Black women are supposed to absorb a lot of things when it comes to how we're spoken to, what is said. And so when someone speaks up and says, well, can't be true because I have a Black daughter, it's bullshit.
Charlemagne's to me, he's a jerk, and he's always been a fraud, in my opinion. I've never, even when he came on with Wendy, I had no appreciation for what he delivered as a media personality. That being said, my only issue with any time we have these issues are it always seems to be more of a matter of convenience when I believe, and me personally believe it should be an absolute. If we're going to engage one another, with civility and without, you know, some of the language and attitude, with some of the, you know, the dog whistles and whatever you want to call the you know, the things that rub people the wrong. You know how media people do. If we're not going to do it, then we just have to not do it. We can't say this person shouldn't do it because he's a black man talking to black women. He shouldn't do it. That's very true. But guess what? And I'm not on some all lives matter. Nobody should do it. It shouldn't be acceptable nowhere. And the kind of heat that Wendy got for what she did, he should get as much, if not more heat, the same way. You're absolutely right. But to me, the issue is why do we, you understand, we're having a conversation about I want to say this right, absurdities, right? People are speaking and behaving in a way that should be unacceptable outside of a closed circuit place where it is accepted. So we are broadcasting nationally and internationally with a tone that is vulgar, and it is accepted, and it is among the children and the young adults, and everybody just accepts it. Oh, let them say what they want to say, let them do what they want to do, freedom of expression. But when somebody else expresses themselves in a way and somebody else feels a way about it, then we want to talk about it. Well, we should have closed the door on it at its root, right? You should not be on nationally broadcast radio or television that is not something that someone pays for or directly goes to, something that is broadcast. Broadcast media should have some supervision. And that supervision should not end with, you know, what they call the 7 words or whatever.
Right.
It should be.
Who's that? Carlin?
Yeah. It should be also.
We're getting old.
It should be also attitude. It should also be fact. And it should also be based in the substance of what you are saying, right? You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater, right? You can't, right? So you should not be able to sell a lie convincingly with your voice and attitude, knowing it's a lie, and have it promoted by your network because of the people who put money in the pockets of the business owner. And this is what's going on with Charlemagne. If it wasn't paying the bills, he wouldn't be speaking like that. If it didn't create the controversy that even have us speaking about him right now, he wouldn't do it. If it was something that hurt his financial pocket or made him a pariah or made him something that no one want, a fungi in the community, he would not do it. This is what needs to happen. But as long as we're going to accept it, especially from our children and young adults, and just say, oh, that's just what they do, and now we're the old people talk about, you kids get off my lawn. No, that's not it. The level of absurdity and vulgarity has reached a point where there is no room left for civil conversation.
Good point.
Great point. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J. Here's what I would say, man. You know, at our age,
obscenity. My bad.
Obscenity.
at our age, you know, we're of an age where hip hop has been in our lives for most of our lives. Not all our lives, because we're older than the mainstream hip hop. So I would say most of our lives. And I'm speaking to men now. We have gotten used to saying things to and about our women in a way that is nasty, it is inappropriate, it is vile, it is vulgar, and it has been perpetuated in a way that we're to see it in jest. Like, it's minimized. It ain't no thing. Like, you know, as much as many of us love Snoop Dogg and our grandparents' generation when we were younger got a kick out of him because he was a cool dude. You know, the hidden track on his debut or on the Chronic was a song called "Bitches Ain't Shit." You know, and many of us, my age, and and
Word
I'm
for
gonna speak
word.
to my age. You know, people younger than me, I'm speaking to my age because I'm a middle-aged man who knows every word to that song. To this day, I could probably spit it. I'm not going to.
Thank you.
The point that I'm making is we have become socialized to misogyny. We speak in a manner that is disrespectful to our women and we laugh about it like it ain't nothing. It's how you talk. It's how you talk amongst your peoples. And so when it comes to his show or others' show or mainstream, you say things and you don't even think about it. Like, it ain't even thing. Like, it ain't even thing where they showed the clip where he dissed Brandy right to her face,
Yes.
and he didn't even think about it. And he looked at her as she reacted to it, and like, what? You know, like, why you mad? Like, you know what I'm saying? And so I will own that with regards to myself, my generation, the music that I love, but I know that it's bigger than that. It's much bigger than that. It's much, much bigger than that because for it to be in the music, it had to be in the culture first.
Yes.
It had to be in the minds and spirit, in the hearts and souls of the men who said bitches ain't shit, for it to be written down and then said in a song, right? So I'm talking about the music, but it ain't about the music because Charlamagne the God ain't no rapper. He's just a social commentator. And so for us to be in this, we got to deal with that first. Like, we got to deal with that even before we get to Brandy being affected and before we get to any other sister being offended. We got to get to where it comes from and how easily disseminated it is. And I ain't no hypocrite because I just sat here and said that I know every word to that song. So what do? When we know better, we do better. I don't use certain words for certain reasons because I've learned to know better. So when you have a person like this who says, "Well, I got a wife and now I got kids," I promise you, he probably had a mother, a sister, or auntie or grandma before that.
Right.
And so for you to use the excuse of I got a wife and now I got daughters, it rings hollow to me and it rings hollow to our sisters. Now, let me again, in the interest of transparency, didn't always ring hollow to me because I was also a person who got caught up in the verbiage of them songs. Remember a minute ago, I said, I know all of the words to those songs. When you know better, you do better. I'm not giving it a pass to Shalimar, the God. Charlemagne the God. Shalimar, right? Shalimar. Sorry.
Second time around.
Yeah, right. Yeah. You know, I'm not giving a pass to him. I'm not giving a pass to anybody that does wrong. Just because when you do wrong, just because you did wrong and you learn better doesn't mean you didn't do wrong. You still got to deal with that. You still got to face consequences for that. Anybody who I may have said their name out of turn or called them out of their name in the past, they have the right to have heat with me. Just because I know better now doesn't mean I didn't offend them then.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? And so when I see the sister take him to task, all I can say is get him, girl. You know what I'm saying? And had that been me in that chair, because I have used that word, and I've used the N word, and I've used other words that may not be a part of who I am now. It is what it is. There's no pass for him. You gotta get him, but do you really, really believe yourself when you say, I got a wife and I got daughters and I know better now? Because if you do, then I can't catch you. I can't hear you saying that no more.
Right.
I can't see you in that space no more. I can't hear you on your show. I don't watch the show. I don't watch the Breakfast Club. It's not because I got heat. It's just because it's not my cup of tea. I just, I mean, there's somebody on there that I want to watch, and I will. If there's somebody I don't want to watch, and there's something else I would rather watch, then I won't watch the Breakfast Club. No shade. Just, I don't know if he's learned his lesson, but what I will say about that is, take your lumps, bruh, because you was foul before. You know what I'm saying? And there are some people who ain't got right with you that you got to hear what they saying. You can't get defensive when they come for you. You're a public figure. You represent a lot of us who have been in that energy, who have said those things. And because you on your show saying greasy shit to Brandy, and if we're just using that as a template for how sometimes we speak out of turn, you got to take them lumps, and you can't get defensive about it. John.
Good point.
Here's my thing. I own my vernacular and my verbiage, and I'm sure there's nothing that he has said or Snoop Dogg has said that I haven't said repeatedly, and I'm quite sure there's some things that I've said that neither one of them even knows to say, right? But I own it, and it's within context of where I am, and that's the part that people miss, right? We sometimes spoke here on the show about some shows that we loved as children and them using the N-word on the show, right? In the context of the show, it moved the show, it was there. I'm not saying it was right, but they owned it, right? The way I speak to people who love me and that who I love is the way I speak to them. And we we go back and forth the way we do, which is very different than how I speak in a public forum, right? People don't realize what an assault is, right? An assault is any time, right, in a public forum, right, or in an open forum, you are offending another person with something that you're doing, right? It could be verbal, emotional, all types. It could be visual, right? This is why we're supposed to have basic standards of conduct in civil society, in public, right? In public, you're not supposed to. They throwing people off planes because they have vulgarity on T-shirts, right? What makes you think that you could wear a vulgar shirt on a plane? That's not freedom of speech. That's not what that's about. That's you being a jerk, trying to catch attention that you don't deserve, right? And got the attention you did deserve and got your butt put off the plane, right? The same thing with Charlemagne. What he said to Brandy was bad in context of it's in a public forum.
And totally
Right?
inappropriate.
Inappropriate. I don't know the nature of their relationship.
Her face said it all.
Right. Her face said it all, right? But here's what I'm saying. If there were two people in a room together and he says something that like that to her based on their relationship, that would be one thing. You don't speak that way to anyone in a open setting. It is inappropriate.
And can I jump
Yeah,
in
go
on
ahead, sir, please.
You make good points about what's appropriate and where it belongs. Kind of the polite company things that our ancestors, our elders would say, like, we don't do this in mixed company or polite company. I think the bigger thing is that Charlemagne does it, but it is very reflective of us culturally. So when I think about the early experiences that I had in corporate America, one thing I realized right away is that we are, to the majority people, right, outliers. We understand the way they live better than they understand the way we live. Most of what they understand about us is lies and speculation and stereotype. But because we have lived in a society that has been based on conformity to their standard, no matter how skewed, we have watched them more closely. Then we get in their spaces, corporate America, your workspace, whatever it is, and we speak about each other in ways that confirms their beliefs, stereotypes us further. The very first negative instance that I ever had in corporate America of a non-Black person saying to me, basically, I don't want to really address this a certain way because I know that you women have attitudes. I had to get with this person and get a clear understanding of where they got that us women, Black women, have attitudes. And it came from the only Black man in the building.
Every woman, every man on the planet
has
an attitude
of some sort.
Right?
Good,
It's part
bad,
of
and
our,
different
it's
depending
part
on
of
the
our
day.
personalities.
Yes.
And it varies with subject matter. So the idea that's one is ridiculous.
And that, but my point is, we are training other people how to speak and think about us instead of breaking these stereotypes and these myths, these misconceptions about who we are. You know, I'll hear people say, "Oh, Black women, I've heard Black women can't work together." Well, where'd you hear that from? Where did you hear that from? Because I had, or Black women don't make good friendships. I went to PWIs my whole life, and I will tell you, the drama you see in women's relationships don't just
it's not
extend
racial.
to Black women.
Absolutely.
And so it a lot of times it stems from competition. And the fact that there are limited spaces being or were limited spaces being provided for women. It's why people would say, well, you know, you got to play like the boys. Why would you tell a woman that she's not a boy if she doesn't identify as a boy? And also, who says that the way the boys are playing is right? But in that context, what I started realizing is we are giving them the language. They don't know who we are. They don't know. They don't have to understand our culture. They absorb it, but they don't spend a lot of time watching us for the sake of survival. When you watch someone for the sake of thriving or surviving, you learn everything about them. It's the ops.
So my thing is, I believe our community is about 15 years behind the curve when it comes to misogyny, right? Because it was very acceptable in the workplace to you know, make advances at women and say things about women.
Very
and
Mad Men.
right. And as it changed in their community, it didn't evolve in our community the same way because we developed that don't act white thing and keep it real and that's my ish and all of that. No. Society has made steps towards evolving into a more civil way of communicating between men and women. It is trying to evolve into some sort of equity within spaces where there was none.
Mm-hmm.
However, our community has fought against it. And the crazy part about it is the fight came from both sides. It's now we're in 2022 and here's a voice, Steph's voice about Black women and their unique struggles, right? Outside of women. So, and we're just talking. Look, I'm 54 years old and I'm just changing my own character with that regard because I'm just acknowledging it's a real issue. So this is how far behind when in the 80s and 90s, these were the topics that the broader community was having in general. And these were some changes that were being made, right? But we act like not only are we not addressing it, we still are not fully accepting that it's something that needs to be addressed. So again, this carries us all the way back to, right? I remember the movie CB4? right? I remember watching that movie, right? And what made the movie so hilariously funny to me was I said to myself watching the movie, this is so funny because there'd never be records that would say these things. They would never allow it. Some years later, I remember going to a party, right? I remember going to a party. DJ Mr. C was the DJ. And he put on Yin Yang Twins, Windows to the Wall. I ran over to Mr. C. I said, what are you doing? He said, what are you talking? I said, you can't play that. We're going to get ran out of here. These women are going to kill us. He told me, look. And I looked into the crowd and the women were singing word for word. From the window to the, y'all know the rest. And I realized I was out of pocket because I had to leave the party because I felt uncomfortable in the room with the song being played and the women singing. So I felt uncomfortable.
I remember the first time I was in a space where one of them songs that we as guys kind of like something like that, and then I looked around and the sisters was in it more than us. I remember that moment, and it is a jarring moment, especially if you feel conflicted inside of yourself when you feeling like I know I'm foul for liking this song. I know the words, but damn it, they know it too. So it is.
Standard has dropped all the way around.
Yeah, I don't want to make this about I don't want to make this about this and the sisters, but I wanted to acknowledge that what John is saying because I do remember a similar feeling where I know I'm hearing something that just instinctually I dig songs catch me, some misogyny in it, and I'm have the initial thought of I'm foul for liking this, and I look around and the sisters in it more than I am. I just many of us remember that moment, so but that doesn't mean that I don't know, it doesn't mean that you wild out. I'm one of those people who I try to do the best that I can to separate the art from the reality. And when, as a fan of the 80s movies, the Rambos and the Schwarzeneggers and all that kind of stuff, and we see them blowing each other up and killing everybody and shooting everybody up, and then we transpose that to hip hop where we say and we put certain imagery in our music, is it really that different? I think that may be a conversation that we can have at another time, but I think it's certainly worth the question. Is it different when I go back to the bitches ain't shit, and I'm saying that, to make the point of how disparaging and disrespectful that is, but it's pretty messed up when you watch a movie like Commando when Schwarzenegger killed a whole bunch of people. And I fought with people about, is this the same or is this different? Then everybody has their opinion about that. Obviously, I'm jumping all over the place, but I guess the ultimate point that I'm making is the imagery and the persona that you're trying to create the same as what's real. Obviously, it's not real for Schwarzenegger to take a Uzi and shoot up a whole bunch of people in the room. Is it real for Charlamagne the God or Snoop Dogg or anybody to be using certain vernacular? Are we to expect that they really believe that in their real lives? Because hip hop is kayfabe, man. It's a wrestling term. It means that shit's fake. When you want to talk about wrestling being fake, if you want to use the phrase kayfabe, that's where you do it. That's where you put a bunch of nonsense in it where this is the illusion of reality. The illusion of, did he really cut himself or did he get hit in the head with a chair? It's an illusion. Yeah, he kind of cut himself. He didn't get cut because of a kick in the head or a punch in the face. Does he really mean that bitches ain't shit? Or does he understand that his mama ain't no bitch and neither is his daughter? You know what I'm saying? Like, did Arnold Schwarzenegger really shoot 100 people and kill them? I hope I'm making sense. I hope somebody understands.
I get you. I get you 1,000%.
You know,
because it goes back to the whole point is again, this is systemic, right? This is not accidental. People are being desensitized and dumbed down in society for the sole purpose of not understanding, right? That we are put in an unreasonable position just to survive. And we will accept it for as long as we're being bombarded with all of this foolishness and nonsense. This should not be a conversation. Like I said, we should not talk, because guess what? In close company, in a room full of men playing cards, smoking cigars, drinking, Snoop Dogg says that phrase, and guys slap the table and laugh and all that. But guess what? We know that we don't say that in the room with our grandmother stuff, because it's satire, right? And when he says it, it has an effect in a way that is subject specific, right? So we may not know exactly what he's talking about, but we know what he means. But he doesn't have to say it that way, but he says it that way. But again, in closed company.
I want to give Steph the final word on this before we move on. As a woman, I know that things are felt differently. Misogyny is a real thing, and I don't know that men have an equivalent to feeling from my sisters what hearing Charlemagne say those things, or feeling Charlemagne saying those things, and hearing and feeling Snoop saying those things. I don't know that there's an equivalent women to men thing as it is men to women thing. And I want to be sensitive to that. I want to understand the reality of what it is we're talking about, but I want to be sensitive to, as a man, there's blind spots. There's something to be said for what John just said with regards to the satire with regards to it, because Charlemagne ain't saying that to his mom and his grandma. So do you know, or to his wife or to his daughters? And so are we to believe that he really means that, or is he just being reckless, or with his mouth by saying that there's certain things that you shouldn't be saying, even if you are saying them in jest? And so I want to be respectful to all of that, while at the same time being honest about the reality of there are many. I remember Jay-Z when what's her name, Blue, was born, and he said similar things
in one of the
with regards to, now he understands the difference between bitches and hoes and my daughter and my mama and my wife. You know what I'm saying? And so I could respect that. As a woman, you would look at a man that would be that way, Charlemagne, Jay-Z, John, Marcus J, whomever, and go, really, dude? So take the final word on this, and then we're going to move on to our final topic.
Misogyny is real, but misogyny is dangerous. One of the listeners commented on how this is very much a reflection of our communities. Misogyny is misogyny specifically directed at Black women. And Charlemagne wouldn't be so relevant if he wasn't an indicator of the temperature of the community. There are times where I have said to men that had, kind feelings toward me, I've explained to them how certain words, language, and things like that are directed very specifically at Black women. A Black woman being opinionated, oh, she's got an attitude. A Latina woman being opinionated, well, now we've softened up the attitude because it came with curly hair and light skin, and she's fiery. And so, yeah, so you're a spicy Latina, but look at this Black girl with another attitude. Misogyny, directly Black hatred of Black women and the things that are said. Charlemagne wouldn't be so relevant, except that he is a reflection of a lot of the language that is used to target Black women. You see it on the internet all the time. I could say this to a million Black men who know me, and they'll look right in my face and be like, I don't know what men you talking about. I don't never see that. because you don't want to see it. You don't want to say it to your homeboy. You don't want to point it out online. You don't want to jump in the comments and defend. You don't want to deal with people being trash. It is very much, I mean, it very much gives the reaction that many Black men have to Miss Noir, misogyny directed toward Black women, is exactly the reaction that white people have, well-meaning progressive white people have, when you point out racism, and they feel like since it's not them, it must not be happening, but it is. And Charlemagne would be less relevant if there weren't enough people that already speak that language and co-sign on it. And that's where it's so problematic.
Steppin, Marcus J live from New Den Legacy and Air Radio. All right, so the final main topic that we're going to touch on tonight, Steph, I want you to kind of talk to us a little bit about the cancellation of student debt, where there's a strong lobby in our country with regards to this. And lead us off. Let's get into a discussion.
Absolutely. So, thank you. So, one of the biggest things that Biden ran on and mentioned was student debt and the cancellation of student loans. And of course, many people got behind. They love to hear it. You're just coming out of pandemic. There weren't a lot of, the job market was looking bad. So even more, there was a push for it. And the fact of the matter is that student loan debt has outpaced and outclassed income. The average person is graduating with their student loan debt is 2 times what they are going to make in the first 5 years of their career. So it's not giving them an opportunity to get ahead. Laura Ingraham the other day made a comment on Twitter that she should have been embarrassed about, that her mother died with student loan debt, her student loan debt. So, and that therefore, those of us out here crying about student loans, and I don't have a dog in the fight. I don't have any student loans, but thankfully, and that's just a blessing. But the question is canceling student loan debt a form of a social platform, which is what they see. They are looking at it. And when I say they, you have Mitt Romney and people on the right, and then even some people on the left who are saying that this is your responsibility. You got the education, you need to pay your debt. Should we have people who are part of the 1% community, even as a part of that discussion, number one? And number two, why aren't we more conscious of the fact that this really, to me, for people, for Black people, would be a form of reparation? I feel like education should be a standard given to the Black community. We shouldn't even be paying for it the way we are, if it is wanted. But the question is, are you okay if you had your student loans and you finally paid them off, and Biden, who, by the way, is saying the most he could really think of is about $10,000 per person. It was 10 to 50,000 per person, depending on their income now. Would you be okay with that if you're still carrying student loan debt?
Well, do we know the number statistically of what Americans owe in student loans?
I can get you that.
Because I'd be interested to juxtapose that number against our aid to Ukraine right now. Also, whatever we did with the pandemic relief, and it's just been said that only about 50% of the money actually got to people.
I have your number.
What's the number?
1.75 trillion.
Okay.
Owed in student loan debt.
We did 4 times that for the pandemic, and less than half of that got to people. And of the people that the half of the people that it got to, about 40% of it was fraud. So
they actually appointed a fraud czar right now to look into all these people.
But the problem is
money.
The problem is he's gonna go after small people.
Easy to
for
get.
Small money. He's going to go after the low-hanging fruit.
Yep.
And the problem is the people that took the majority of the money was big wheelers. So I think there was talk about it being a $100,000 cap, like people who did $100,000 or more, because there's a ton of like day workers and stuff that did like 15, 10, 20, 30,000, and they, if you go after them, what are you doing? You really letting it go because they didn't get the money. Kanye West got millions of dollars. Kanye West.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying?
did.
So we really gotta, know what we're dealing with as far as that. The student loans, you gotta remember, it's still law in this country that the government is only responsible to give you up to an 8th grade education. That's it. After that, it's on you what you do afterwards. But they sold it, right? It's like the housing market when they were selling the people the bad mortgages. They sell these kids these bad loans, right? And they take them away from grants and turn them towards loans, right? And the institutions are crazy. Going back to Ukraine, in New York City, there's about 100 institutions that Ukrainians came over and founded that give people associate degrees in various subject matter, and all of the money comes directly from they have like a pipeline. Like, just put your name on the line, don't even worry about, just sign here, and they get all the money. And you go and they take all the money and you get this even meaningless certificate or this associate's degree that's not accredited, that you can't even transfer your credits into a 4-year institution, right? So yeah, the bottom line is all of it should just be erased, right? Just period. And there should be a continuing. Barack Obama had put something in place for continuing education at high school, went 2 more years. So you got the equivalent of an associate's degree with something that translated to actual work, right? Towards something, because they pulled vocation out of high schools. Like when I went to high school, I had home economics, I had typing, I had woodwork,
wood shop,
right? Yeah. So we learned certain things. We learned how to use a ruler and a tape measure and a saw and a hammer. We learned how to type. We learned how to make meringue, and we also learned how to write in the back of the checkbook. Right? These was home economic classes, right? So they took that out of the school, and we're talking about, what are they talking about now? The critical race theory and all of that. Listen, if it was up to me, I would just make school math, science, and reading and writing. Take all the social studies out of it because it don't have any place in school. Let the parents deal with the children, especially up into high school age, as far as what they're going to have them know and what they want them to know. And stop bringing all this personal social media crap into the schools altogether. That's how I believe it should be. However, when you talk about education, is already most major state, a lot of states are going to free education for residents. New York, New Jersey, a few other places. So listen, if you're going to go to school and go to the school in your community, the government there's money already there, right? So again, they were selling these loans. So when people say, oh, you got the education, no, you sold the young people on it. And most of the people who got it were from families where they were the first people going to college.
And that's why that is why I'm very anti for-profit colleges. Not traditional universities, but these for-profit colleges. I won't call their names, but they, I've had direct engagement with those systems from an employment standpoint. And those colleges tend to push high interest loans. They are pushing them among their sales pitch is they know you're the first to go to college. Matter of fact, these colleges are put on bus lines intentionally to target poor and marginalized, primarily Black people.
That's the whole point.
And then they give them, you take the average young person, they go and they try to apply for a Parent Plus loan. The parents don't have the backing, the income, and so on and so forth. They get denied. The first thing that they do is now transition them to a private SLM, Sally Mae loan. It's a whole different division of Sally Mae. It doesn't have the same limitations for interest rates as a federal Stafford loan. So now these students have federal Stafford loans and they have private loans through Sally Mae. And those Sally Mae loans will be anywhere from 21 to 27% interest. And they don't have the interest restrictions that a federal Stafford loan has. If you think about, let me say this, the average university doesn't run TV commercials, do they? They don't need to. If your university, excuse me, or your college is running TV commercials during Jerry Springer, during any of those times on Fox in the afternoon, they're doing it because they know who's watching. And those specific colleges, which to John's earlier point, most of the time don't have regional accreditation, which is what is necessary in order to be able to transfer credits. Now, I'm giving you this from having worked on the inside. Early in my career, I worked with those private student loans. And why would they hire someone like me? Because my background is sales. It's a pitch. And the fact of the matter is, when Obama came after those for-profits and started shuttering them, that's why you're seeing a lot of people getting their loan debt forgiven. They're getting it forgiven through, and I'll use ITT as one of them. They're all gone now. They're giving them their money back. They're erasing their loan debt because they would take, I've seen it with my own eyes. They would have somebody who was so significantly or had significant intellectual delays. I saw someone with a significant intellectual delay that would not be able to function in the average office environment. They steered him into a degree program that would have needed social skills that he didn't have, that would have needed a certain level of intellect that was not natural. He was not naturally inclined toward. By the way, college ain't for everybody, and don't let people convince you that it is. And I'm saying this as someone who's educated. It's not for everybody. You can make a lot of money going and doing the thing that you have a natural skill set. I date a plumber right now. That some of them are billing. I met a plumber the other day, 2 hours of work, $600 billed for the labor. It's not the parts. It's not all the other work. We have these types of things specifically target us. So when I hear a Mitt Romney legacy millionaire, maybe billionaire, with 4 sons who all went to college, I'm sure paid cash, daddy sent a check, maybe even got in on legacy names. Father was educated and financially sound. Their mother, their big claim to fame from Mrs. Romney, Ann Romney, was, oh yeah, when we were young people get first married, we had an apartment where we had to stitch together to get carpet. And we didn't have to work, thankfully, because we had to sell off stock shares that his dad had given us so we could survive. These are the people that are making decisions that a young Black person who is excited to go to college, maybe the first in their family, over borrows, no different than the housing industry, just like you said, get out, employability is lower for them than it might be for somebody else. Black men make 75 cents to a dollar on of white men. Black women make 75 cents on a dollar to white women, and also make less than white men and black men until they started getting all this education. So to beat the system. But even then, being offered less than your degree, than the degree you paid for, and keeping you in perpetual servitude to whatever entity is going to hire you. I also want to say, let's make it very clear, one of the big reasons people are fighting against this is because the board, the emeritus, all the people that are sitting on these boards at these large universities, they also are the CEOs and founders of the companies. And so it is a cycle. We now run this large major company. We also sit on the board of a university. So we make it a rule that to work at this company, you must have a degree. And now we're feeding 2 systems that we're a part of. And now that we've raked you over the coals and you've taken out $150,000 in student debt, And in 6 months after graduation, it's going to start accruing interest, and you'll mostly be paying the interest for most of your life and never get out of it. And by the way, it's one of the few things that they can then come after you for. Student loan falls under the same kind of federal regulation as IRS, as being in having back taxes. You don't, if you owe and you go into default on a student loan, it can stop you from a lot of different things.
Yeah, it has this power. Here goes something. People, nobody will ever tell you this, but I'm going to tell you because I love you. In New York City, there's a college called Baruch. Familiar with Baruch College in New York?
Mm-hmm.
It's part of CUNY, City University, New York. One of the finest educations you can ever get. If you're a New York resident, right? There are enough grants available to you, provided that your household income doesn't exceed a certain amount, that will pay for your entire education at Baruch. You will not need a student loan. If you get a student loan, it would probably be you trying to pay some rent, you want to buy some books or something like that. But for the actual education, one of the finest educations in the country, the grants will cover it. The student advisors and people at these colleges steer you to the loans. You don't need them. There's so many grants available to you that all you have to do is ask for the money and your education will be paid for. If you cannot pay for the education completely with the grant, that means the university is trying to make money and they're trying to make money off of you, and your education is not going to benefit you, right? Think about the people who bought houses in the Poconos, right? I used to open up the daily newspaper, and in the back of the paper, they had the real estate section. They had houses in the Poconos, 3 bedrooms, 2.5 bathroom, 1,400 square foot home, $49,000. I used to go, wow, that was nice. I watched the paper change over to 49, 69, 89, 129, 189, $229,000 for the same house over like 3 years. I'm like, what happened? And people were buying these houses in the Poconos because they told them, listen, buy now. We're going to give you this interest rate. At this time, you'll be able to refinance. Boom. The house is going to appreciate. Look how the price went up. So now you're going to pay $229 this year. Next year is going to be $329. You'll be able to refinance, take the money out of the house, do something with it, add it to the mortgage because the interest is going to be lower. You're going to pay less every month. People believed it. Stayed in those houses for a year, 2 years, went to refinance. They went to the bank. The bank said, you can't refinance. He says, why not? My house, I've been in here, I had equity and blah, blah, blah. Look at the paper. They selling it. I bought it for $220. It's selling for $400,000 now. He said, listen, your house doesn't have any equity. Your house is wood, nails, and windows. Your house is worth about $39,000. You paid $229. You got a ways to go before you can get any money out. Everybody's underwater. Everybody's underwater with the student loans. The problem is the government backed it. Because if the government didn't back it, right, you could just be like, oh, well, guess you shouldn't have loaned me that money. Tough luck, sucker. But those people got paid by the government. So now the government is after you for the money. So the government needs to go ahead and forgive it because they shouldn't have backed it. Because they knew you wasn't going to be able to pay it.
They don't have Steph Marcus J live from New Den Legacy in their radio. The only thing I'll say to it is, you both nailed it when we talked about it being a government thing. We talk about loans. When you say a loan, you think of a bank, but this is the Bank of the United States of America. And so when the United States of America gives you money, you can better believe that they're going to make it hard for you. They don't do anything to make it easy for the people. And when you think about education, how they sell it to you, how certainly our generation, I think our generation was one of the first generations that was sold on get educated, get education, get education. I'm sure other generations before us were taught that, but it was drilled upon our generation, get education, get education, get education, And so when you think about it from that perspective, and then you think about how you have a generation of people who have now a whole new level of debt that the previous generation didn't have, and it's created, and now it continues. It's not surprising. It's not a conspiracy, it's a plan. They will always find a way to get money from you. And education being essential to being able to move in this country, you're not going to have a situation where they're going to make it easy for you. They're not going to make it easy for you to move in this country. You got to remember, the people in power, the people that are designed to keep the people behind them not in power. And you got a bunch of rich people with no education who understand that. You know what I'm saying? The smartest people, legacy money, people who are born into it, people who are
Slave money.
billionaires and millionaires who have this money built into their life. You know what I'm saying? Telling you that if you go to school, you might be able to get what we got. But we're going to loan you the money to do it. And if you don't pay us back, we're going to bury you in your life for the rest of your life. Like, it's a vicious cycle, and many of us see it, but it just, I don't want to say it is what it is, because it's a devastating thing for someone who is 18 years old, who finds out after they get their doctorate at 26 or 27 that they're going to spend the next 30 years paying that off. And the benefits of being a doctor, they may not be able to realize, because all of the extra money they get is spent paying back those loans. It's like, man, I gotta pay you. Like, I didn't pay to go to the elementary, I didn't pay to go to high school. This is what we say we got you. We got you on that. We got you on basic and education. We got you on that. Anything more than that, not only are you going to pay, but you're going to pay to the point where it becomes a detriment to you. And if you don't pay us back, we're gonna fuck your life up. Like, think about that for a second. Like, the IRS, they come for you like with taxes. Your regular income tax is one thing, but if your job gives you a bonus, we're gonna tax you more for that. We're gonna tax you more for that.
You worked hard for
You
that
work
commission,
hard,
and
you
you
know,
don't see
you
how.
know what I'm saying? It's like, come on, man. Like, we know what it is in this country, and the student loan thing is just another example of how a country that purports to make it easy goes out of its way to make it hard for you. And I don't even know how to talk up my way out of that, because there ain't no way out of that. It's one of those. It's
one of those things that it really is what it
It
is.
really is what it is. Ain't no how Steppin. Marcus J. Live from New Den, Legacy Internet Radio. Final comment that we'll take on air for tonight is from our brother Reynaldo, who had another comment he put out there earlier that I put on the screen. I appreciate him. I'll read this one. When it comes to those student loans, I'll never make enough money to pay them off. So screw them. I'm paying them $25 a month until I die. I ain't mad
A
at
lot
you,
of
brother.
people say that you might as well,
I ain't one bit mad at you. Ain't no ass Steppin, Mark J. Live
especially
from
if you
New
have
Den.
everything you need.
Legacy, yeah, exactly.
Car,
Legacy and
house.
Radio. At this time of the show, we're gonna move on to our final stage. We get into our rants, our closings, and then we'll go home tonight. At this stage right now, we'll do our moment in Black history. Well, let's start in 1963. On this day, actually, this usually I do on this week, but on this day, May 2nd, 1963, more than 700 black children protesting racial segregation in Birmingham, Alabama, are arrested, blasted by fire hoses, clubbed by police, and attacked by police dogs in America.
Kid.
And our children, many of our parents are old enough to remember that and were adults in 1963. And some of our parents were actually kids in 1963. My point is, this is part of our remembrance. This ain't so far back in the history book that you can act like it didn't happen. Nah, we talking about there are some who we see and love and communicate every single day that were alive in 1963, and they remember this. I remember having conversations with my mother, who was socially conscious then, who is socially conscious now, is the one in my family who I get my consciousness from. She was at the March on Washington in 1963 in August 1960, August 28, 1968. By the way, a few months before that was when this happened. And I remember having conversations with her about what it was like to look at the television and see little black children have this happen to them, and how the consciousness of white folks began to shift. Many of us wish that it had shifted more, but you got to take historical shifts as they come and take them with the grain of salt of which they deserve. 1946. Oh, wow. Okay. Louisiana fails in this attempt to execute 17-year-old Willie Francis by electrocution. The state electrocutes him a year later, executes him a year later by electrocuting him again. Good old fashioned double jeopardy. Yeah. Last one that I'll do, and there are many of us who actually remember this. I don't remember 1963. No. And I don't remember 1946. No. But I do remember 1992. I remember the end of the LA riots, which was sparked by the acquittal of white officers who beat black motorist Rodney King, because we saw it on tape on March 3rd, 1995 or 4. When they beat the brakes off him. Doesn't matter what he did before the tape went on. We saw them 4 dudes beat him with clubs, and they all got to go home, and none of them faced any real consequences. And so the people of Los Angeles decided that they was going to burn their town down. I'm never going to endorse burning your town down, but I understand the rage.
Well, if they do something to me, y'all can burn every CVS, Walgreens, Rite Aid. I don't care what it is. Let them know. Don't be peaceful.
Nah, I can
you
dig
don't
it.
gotta be peaceful.
I can.
If you ain't gonna kill the police, don't do nothing.
Yeah, no, I can
Don't
dig
do
that.
nothing.
John.
No,
The end of
that's
that, the end of that
if the
riot.
police beat me up, if y'all ain't gonna kill the police, don't go burning up stores, because that don't mean nothing.
The end of that riot resulted in 53 people dead, 2,000 injured, and over $1 billion in damage. And the sad part about all of that is we saw the tape. We saw what happened. And miss me with the jury of 12 people, all that bullshit. Like, we saw the tape. We know what happened, and we know how these things can go. And I will never endorse burning down your town because you're mad over a jury verdict. That's not me. You're never going to get me saying that that's okay, whether it's the CVS or it's the Kroger spot. You're never going to get me to endorse that. However, you will get me to say that I understand the rage, and that's where I'll leave it. And you know how Steppin, Marcus J live from New Den, Legacy Internet Radio. At this time, we also make sure that we profile a missing and or exploited child. Today, we got 2 young brothers. One is in Henrico and one is in Chesterfield. We're looking for Jamonte Peck. He's a 17-year-old black male. He's 190 pounds and stands 6 foot tall. He was last seen on April 8th wearing a black hooded sweatshirt and green sweatpants. If you've seen Jamonte Peck, please contact the Chesterfield County Police Department at 804-748-1251. We're also looking for Keyshawn Curtis. He's been missing since April 28th from Henrico County here in the Cap City. He's a 15-year-old black male. He stands 5'1", weighs 145 pounds. Last seen wearing black Nike hoodie, black jeans. He's got a small scar on his right cheek. If you've seen Keyshawn Curtis, please contact the Henrico County Police Department at 804-501-5000. So we'll recap that. If you've seen Jamonte Peck out of Chesterfield, if you've seen Keyshawn Curtis out of Henrico, please contact the National Center for Missing and or Exploited Children on their website, missingkids.org, or contact the phone number at 1-800-THE-LOST, 1-800-843-5678. We will always, for the almost 11 years that we've been in social media, that we've been in internet radio, we've been in live podcasting, we will always look for our own. And so if you've seen Keyshawn Curtis or if you've seen Jamonte Peck, keep your eyes open and contact the authorities in your area. Ain't no hashtag Marcus J, live from New Den Legacy Internet Radio. It's the time of the show where we say our collective goodbyes, and we each have an opportunity to say our final piece, our final word. We go around the room with that. We call that our rants. We call that our closings, formerly known as Grizzy's Gripes, because we are born out of the original green room. I thank my brother John and my sister Steph, your brother John and your sister Steph, for being a part of tonight's show, as they are with me every single week, bringing you socially conscious talk that's entertaining with a dash of humor, usually the top sports stories of the week. That is our original tagline. I am so happy and excited and proud that after all of these years, we are still here doing that. And so we will go to that part of the show. John has the con. He's up first. He will share with us his final word. My brother, what you got to say?
Ooh, I'm gonna make this so short. We were just talking about a lot of stuff in student loans, and it deals with finances. In my retired life, I have become a financial consultant, dealing with only people I really know and people I really love, but helping them navigate and manage their finances in such a way that they can actually live instead of survive. If you're a person and you got issues with your student loans, I can actually help you. I can get it so that it won't be on your credit anymore. And we could postpone your payment basically forever. So if you need it, get at me. You can find me on this medium. You can leave a message for me with your information. I'll speak to you. Also, just generally speaking, if you find yourself, just making the bills, behind on certain things, not really enjoying your life at all, and working and just not getting any joy out of life, give me a call. I'm extraordinarily reasonable. And most times, a lot of times, and I've gotten in trouble with this for people in my life, a lot of times it won't cost you anything, because most of the information that I will give you will help you if you want to help yourself. It only costs you something if you want me to help you. But I'm going to try to give you the information so that you can help yourself. All right, so get at me. That's my rant.
You know how Steppin Marcus J, live from New Den Legacy in that radio, as I pass the con around the room from my brother John to my sister Steph, your brother John, and your sister Steph. You got the con, your final word of the night. What is your rant in closing?
Very emphasized.
Yeah.
Thank you both, brothers. As usual, I appreciate you. Transparency before the show, your voices during the show, your friendship after. I appreciate you so much. First, I want to say, please tune in to Hustlers Hive every Friday. I'm usually streaming live on my personal Facebook page, but you can hear me streaming on Choice. It's 1053.org, or you can hear me on 105.3, and then also on ESPN 106.1 every Friday at 2:30 on Choice. ESPN, it's always super early, 6 a.m. But give me 30 minutes and I'll give you the world. It's short format radio. We give you a little bit of love, a little bit of education.
22 minutes. Give you the world.
Yes.
Tuned in when I pulled in the other night.
Thank you. And also, I am launching this month Trep U, which is an online entrepreneur academy. I have been in an entrepreneurial space since I was 23, successfully self-employed. And I want to see that for all of you. If you're out there, you're running a business, we are going to have, we're actually launching our first courses. They are reasonably priced. They are self-guided, and they will include coaching, consulting, and group coaching. So you get the bang for your buck. You don't have to go and get student loans for it. And it gives you some insight into doing business in a way that is authentic and genuinely centered on the way that you move. And that's going to be at thetrepu.com. That's the TREPU.com. Now, the thing I want to center my rant on today, I saw a statistic and it said that 1 in 10 grandparents, there are 70 million grandparents in America, and 1 in 10 are raising a grandchild. And I'm a product of an environment where I was raised by my grandparents, and I'm very thankful for that. I actually mentioned it on Facebook that it changed the trajectory of my life through things like private education and the ability to go on ski trips and things that they were trying to expose me to and allow me to do that may not have been done for me otherwise. And I realize how significant it is. But I also, on the other turn, realize that that means significantly that there are a lot of children that are not getting the opportunity to experience the direct nurturing and love of parents. And there is nothing like having mom and dad be present, engaged. Mom and dad don't even have to be married, but if mom and dad are present and emotionally engaged with their children, it adds a layer of protection and security that a lot of children are in this world without. And when they don't have it, we do not know who they will become because those things begin to fester. And the more I started paying attention to those statistics, the more I started to look at the fact that there's a lot happening in schools right now. There's a huge culture. They're calling it a culture war. But I'll tell you where that's a lie. Black parents are not showing up. Can only be a war if we got two sides. And so when you watch these people screaming, foaming at the mouth at school board meetings because of CRT, which by the way is not taught anywhere, even through primary collegiate levels. So through a bachelor degree, most people do not get courses in CRT. And if someone has an MBA, they likely didn't. It's a lie. And it's a lie not only of convenience, but erasure. The lie about critical race theory is really about feelings of one grouping of people and then the idiots that support them, because there are Black folk that are supporting this. And what I want you to realize is these things are starting to overtake our systems faster than they would have 10 or 15 years ago. 10 or 15 years ago, the people made a little bit of noise and you didn't see a huge transition in political landscapes. Now these things are happening overnight. We went literally, the CRT language took 3 months to catch hold before there were over 35 states with school boards reviewing critical race theory and implementing barriers to education for Black children on the basis of the lie that talking about history would hurt the feelings of white children. And so when we don't show up just as noisy and foaming at the mouth as the other side, they have the opportunity to make decisions that your children now are going to be cut off. They are now not going to learn the basics of history. And mind you, they were barely teaching the basics. Barely teaching the basics. So not showing up, not being present. And I'll tell you, when you have grandparents raising children, there's a certain amount of fatigue that comes with that. That's not their job. That's not what they're supposed to be doing. You know, I hear my girlfriend say, man, being a grandmother is the best thing in the world because I don't have to do all of the mean things. I get to enjoy the engagement of my grandchildren without the pain of parenting that I went through of parenting my children, being the disciplinarian and everything else. Grandma can rot your teeth out. She's sending you home to the parents and she just wants to love up on you. When you're not present and your parents have to do the work, the grandparents have to do the work, you immediately, you may not be removing the grandparents' love, but you're removing children getting the opportunity to experience a grandparent. And then you remove that level of fight that those grandparents may have had when they were raising their own children and don't have the energy to do now, to go up to school and fight and be at the school board meetings and all of those other things. It's important to recognize that once you make a decision to bring another human being into this world, you have to, before doing that, make the ultimate commitment that no matter what, all of your decisions and behaviors are going to be focused on them being able to navigate this life in a way that is healthy and endorses their full happiness. And dropping them off with Big Mama ain't it. She should get the joy of just being Big Mama. She shouldn't have to be mom. You know, I didn't get the joy of just knowing what a grandparent is like. It's significant. But I also didn't get the pleasure of seeing a mom or dad bust into a schoolroom and let a teacher know that they can't play with me the way I have done for my children. So if you're out there right now and you're angry with the mother or father of your child, you need to understand that your anger means so little. It means so little in the face of everything that you're removing from the life of that child. And that's my rant.
Ain't no half Steppin, Marcus J live from New Den Legacy in that radio. Shout out to Miss Jackson. Miss Jackson has been watching and listening to us tonight. It's always an honor and a joy for me when I have an elder that supports us and supports what it is that we do. And so I'll always pay homage to you. And
Thank you, Miss Jackson.
and thank you.
Put out a good product over here.
Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, you
Miss
know,
Jackson.
where I say. Yeah. So thank you, Miss Jackson. I appreciate you, man. I just appreciate you so much. And you know, the funny thing is, she says she's sending love. You know, the funny thing is, like, those of us, here come your flowers. Those of us who know who you are, like, there's a group chat with me and Damon and Urena and Eunice. The four of us was just like we were locked in as 17-year-olds, and we loved you, you know, throughout. We ain't always like you, you know, because you was the elder, you was on us. But we obviously have learned to appreciate you. But we talk about you, like your name stay in our mouth. You know what I'm saying? And it's one of those things where you never know the influence that you have on people. And we did the first segment of the show. We talked about how the young people in our lives, our friends, you know, and how they affected us, you know, who they were, and we talked about the best friends and the things they left with us, and we often will talk about, you know, our elders, but you can't talk about those people enough. At least I can't, because it's an example for, you know, our children's generation to remember that they didn't do all of this by themselves. Like, you had a blueprint. There was always a teacher or an elder or a person in the neighborhood or a big cuz like Cousin Terry, who's checking in right now, who says love and peace to us. Somebody like Cousin Terry or Miss Jackson, who are very important people to me in my life. Like, there were always those people, and I will always pay homage to them. I think it's important because, one, words of affirmation. You got to tell people you fucks with them, right? You got to encourage positive behavior. But at the same time, for you to tell your story, you ain't the only one that put yourself up on a pedestal. Like, there was always someone that gave you a jewel. And I think it's important that we remember those people. You know what I'm saying? One, to make them understand that they made an influence or they made a difference in your life. But two, you're going to be that person. Like, I tell young people all the time, it's funny to be talking about my elder, and then now I'm saying I tell young people all the time. Like, I remember it was 10 years ago that Miss Jackson had me come and speak to her students. So here's your full circle. 10 years ago or more, you know. So here's the full circle moment. But anyway, I'll say this and then I'll get to my rant. You know, it's important when you tell your story to tell all of it and to let folks know that you didn't get there by yourself. because when you pour into them, they're going to pour into the people that came behind them. And this is how that positive cycle continues. This is how the village grows, right? This is how all of that happens. And somebody like Miss Jackson is a part of that village for me. And I'm always pay homage to her and to Miss Lorenzo and to Mr. Atkins and all of the teachers who were pivotal in my life, and the elders that were pivotal in my life, and hopefully those folks who are watching and listening, maybe you didn't have those people, but guess what, you are those people. And so remember that when you pour into your youth, you remember that as you remember the people who poured into you. We got to always celebrate one another, because when we do that, we encourage positive behavior, and that's how we keep our village growing from generation to generation. All right, so ain't no how Mark says a rant inside a rant. That was one of those Zen master rants that I've gotten pretty good at. Now I'm going back to old school Marcus J, the one that would legit rant, which is where the name of this particular segment came from. Because yeah, I'm like yogi, but I'm also surly, and I'm annoyed because last week I ranted about people tagging me in social media, and what happened? I had a bunch of people calling me and inboxing me and throwing shade at me about saying all of that. And so, and then I had a few of the people who I was fussing about continue to tag me in their stuff. So guess what? I had to delete them. I'm not one of the people that say I'm going to no, I just do it. I just do it. But here's a different kind of social media person that I want to kind of fuss about this week. That is the person that talks boastful, but then when challenged, they recoil like like they wilt. The person who will put out this boastful statement. I'm this person, I'm that person, and I'm tough and I'm smart and I'm all of that. And then when you challenge them, they get mad. I'll give you a specific example. I got a brother of mine, right? Childhood friend, known him many, many years. And he got heat with Stephen A. Smith. And there are plenty of people that have heat with Stephen A. Smith. This ain't got nothing to do with Stephen A. Smith. This is just the object of the discussion, right? I don't have no heat with Stephen A. Smith because I understand him. There are parts of me that likes him. There are parts of me that doesn't like him. This person really doesn't like Stephen A. Smith, up to and including saying the most nasty and vile things about him, calling him names, and the tough guy talk that we talked about earlier tonight. Calling him all everything, right? And so with me, here I go. I hit him with, you know what, brother? Stephen A. Smith loves you. Stephen A. Smith loves you. You know why? Because you and people like you keep Stephen A. Smith relevant. So you can call him all your nasty, vile names. He celebrates you, brother. He loves you, brother. You know why? Because you keeping his pockets fat. He loves you more than those of us who actually love him. You know? And you know what this brother said to me when I said all of that to him? You know what he said to me? He said, why are you always coming into my page trying to change the direction of the conversation? I'm not even going to get into this with you. This is what he said to me. So old Marcus J would have spent a whole bunch of time going back and forth with him on social media. I ain't doing that. Why? Because I got a whole platform where I can actually talk to you. I can look at the camera. I can actually talk to you. And I can tell you if you want it, 804-402-2893. And that goes for everybody, anybody who doesn't like what I say, then we can call and talk. Because see, what I'm not going to do is the back and forth on social media where I can sit and figure out what tough incendiary thing that I'm going to say to make myself seem strong and tough and powerful and all those things, as opposed to just having a conversation with me, whether it be on the phone or maybe it's not on the phone. Maybe we just see each other. But what I'm not going to do is the tough talk in social media. I'm not doing that. And I don't think that you should be doing that. Not just you, but anybody. Like, why are we doing that? Why are we getting into our tough talk in social media, saying things that we would never say to somebody to their face, We wouldn't say in a room that they might be across from us in. Why? Because we just don't want it that way. But we get this keyboard courage where we say the most nasty and vile things to people over the phone that we would never say to their face. Like, who are you? What kind of person are you? Where does your toughness come from? It don't come from where mine comes from, because mine comes from looking a man in his eye or a woman in her eye and saying the things that need to be said. Put it down. It's not real. If you're going to call this man just because he is not in your purview, just because you don't have access to him, just because he's a famous person who doesn't know you exist, doesn't mean you get to say all of the nasty, vile things to him that you wouldn't say to his face, because you don't want it with him like that. You don't want it with nobody like that. You really don't want it with me like that. 804-402-2893, and I'm in the Richmond area. Hey, look, I've been transparent about where I'm at and where I be. We all have. So stop the tough talk, man. It ain't cool. It ain't real. It's not authentic, and you sound crazy doing it. That's my Marcus's unrelated rant. It's got nothing to do with what we talking about tonight. And yes, I'm a Gemini, and yes, I'm a yogi, and yes, I'm mean as hell. I want to remind everybody that independence is the key to building your legacy. I also want to say peace to all of the stars and all of the squares. In the abundance of water, the fool is thirsty. Those are the words of Bob Marley, who you hear singing in the background. I'm celebrating almost 11 years with this wonderful crew and you. Authenticity has no competition. Be well. Give grace. But most importantly, and more poignant to my rant, keep it 100. Aint on Hastel Marcus J. We'll be live from New Den later on this month. We appreciate y'all. We love with y'all. We rocks with y'all. Thank you. Holla at your boy, and your sister.
Yeah. It's about that time. It's about that time to get. Yeah.
Button your lip, open your ears, strap on your thinking cap. Socially conscious talk that's entertaining with a dash of humor and the top sports stories of the week. It's time for Ain't No Half Steppin' with Marcus J.
Sellers has Jordan. Jordan with 2 seconds to go. Puts it up. It's good at the buzzer. Michael Jordan has won it for Chicago. Manning lobs it. Burris alone. Touchdown, New York.
Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. He hits one deep to right center. That ball is out of here. The Yankees win the.
Oh yeah, I'm with this, Wizzy. I'm just gonna lay back and I'm gonna drop some smooth lyrics. So tune in 7 to 9:30 and don't be late. We about to set it straight. Ain't no half stepping with Marcus J. Word. I'm ready, let's go. Ain't no half stepping, that's the name of the show. Yeah, Marcus J hosting and we ready to go. Yeah, Hunter's talk sprinkled with a dash of humor to the legacy listeners and the online viewers. What you wanna talk about, call it, we're hearing you. Cover all topics, touch on the main issues. With the flow in this show, bring the heat. The word on the street, Wizard Earl on the beat. We superb in the D, legacy online. 7 to 9:30, please be on time. Ain't no half stepper with Marcus J, my brother. If they can't hang, word to their mother. And he been on this grind for a while. The brother so smart, plus brother got style. Up in Richmond, we on the mission, before force. And listen up, this Marcus J start to talk, running back. And he been on this grind for a while. The brother so smart, plus brother got style. Up in Richmond, we on the mission, before force. And listen up, this Marcus J start to talk. don't have Steppin, that's the name of the show. Yeah, Marcus J hosting and we ready to go. Yeah, Hunters talk sprinkled with a dash of humor to the legacy listeners and the online viewers. What you wanna talk about, call it, we're hearing you. Cover all topics, touch on the main issues. Boogie flow in this show, bring the heat. The word on the street was the Earl on the beat. We superb in the D, legacy online. 7 and 9:30, please be on time. Ain't no half stepper with Marcus J, my brother. If they can't hang, word to their mother. And he been on this grind for a while. The brother so smart, plus brother got style. Reppin' Richmond, we on the mission, we full force. And listen up, this Marcus J start to talk.